Hadirin sekalian dipersilakan berdiri untuk lagu Negaraku dan lagu Kebesaran Negeri Sarawak, Ibu Pertiwiku. Hadirin dipersilakan duduk. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Yang berbahagia Datuk Syahul Daud, Ketua Eksekutif HRD Corp. Yang berbahagia Datuk Arif Farhandos, Ketua Pegawai Operasi HRD Corp. Yang berusaha Encik Roni Ambrose Gobili, Ketua Pegawai Strategi dan Program HRD Corp. Ahli-ahli lembaga pengarah HRD Corp, ketua-ketua jabatan dan agensi di bawah Kementerian Sumber Manusia, Tan Sri Tan Sri, Datuk-datuk, datin-datin, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang dimuliakan. Selamat datang ke Hari Terbuka HRD Corp Sarawak 2022 dan pelancaran Forum Nasional HRD Corp. Kita beri tepukan kepada HRD Corp. Congratulations to HRD Corp. Dalam acara selama 2 hari bermula hari ini, HRD Corp membawakan pelbagai aktiviti yang bertujuan untuk memudahkan penyampaian maklumat terkini mengenai inisiatif dan perkhidmatan HRD Corp. Selain itu, kita juga akan membincangkan isu kesan gaji sara hidup living wage serta gaji minimum terhadap produktiviti negara. Khusus untuk program pagi ini, Forum Nasional HRD Corp akan membincangkan mengenai Malaysia at the crossroads, living wage versus minimum wage and its impact on national productivity, di mana golongan panelis yang berwibawa akan mengupas cabaran serta inisiatif untuk menangani isu ini dengan lebih lanjut. Adalah diharapkan para pengunjung dan peserta akan mendapat manfaat menerusi program yang dianjurkan ini. Bagi memberkati majlis kita pada pagi ini, marilah kita sama-sama menadah tangan mengaminkan bacaan doa yang akan dipimpin oleh Saudara Husni Mubarak bin Julaihi. Majlis dengan penuh takzimnya mempersilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Ya Allah, di acara Hari Terbuka HRD Corp 2022 Sarawak pada hari ini, kami zahirkan rasa syukur yang tidak terhingga atas segala anugerah-Mu kepada kami seluruhnya. Ya Ghaffar, kami pohonkan juga keselamatan dan kesejahteraan negara yang kami kasihi. Moga rakyatnya sejahtera, sentosa dan maju jaya di bawah pemerintahan pemimpin kami. Ya Allah, jadikanlah majlis kami ini satu majlis yang dirahmati dan perpisahan kami selepas ini satu perpisahan yang diberkati. Permudahkanlah ya Allah urusan kami dan sempurnakanlah semua pekerjaan kami dengan segala kebaikan. Ya Allah, sesungguhnya Engkau Maha mendengar lagi Maha mengetahui. Terimalah dan perkenankanlah doa kami ini. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzaban nar. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Amin, amin, ya Rabbal Alamin. Semoga majlis kita pada hari ini akan diberkati Allah, insya-Allah. Hadirin sekalian, seterusnya majlis dengan hormatnya ingin menjemput Yang Berbahagia Datuk Syahul Dawood, Ketua Eksekutif HRD Corp untuk menyampaikan ucapan. Dipersilakan.
Terima kasih Datin Sharifah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning to everyone present here this morning. First and foremost, I would like to say a special thanks to all those panelists who are here this morning. Some of them have come all the way from KL, some of them from Sarawak. But most important, thank you for being the panelists for this prestigious forum, which is happening today and tomorrow. Yang Berbahagia Dato' Arif Farhandaus, Chief Operating Officer, HRD Corp, members of the board of HRD Corp, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. For your information, this is our fourth open day since we started this series of roadshow events all over Malaysia. In fact, it is also the first of such engagement in Sarawak in over the last 2 years. Thank you to all the stakeholders who have taken time to be here with us this morning, because we are discussing the key issues on the human capital development that are affecting Sarawak business and talents, while raising awareness on HRD Corp products and services that can help you achieve your business and talent development aspirations. At the same time, this two-day event will also feature activities that will benefit Sarawak graduates, young professionals and talents. This include a career talk, resume building workshop by HBC team, as well as My Future Jobs Career Fair by our sister agency, Prokeso, which will be offering thousands of job opportunities by some of the Sarawak and Malaysia's leading employers. Therefore, I hope you will take advantage of the activities that we have planned for the next 2 days and get the best support for you and for your business as well. Ladies and gentlemen, HRD Corp Open Day Sarawak is a way of bringing HRD Corp to your doorstep. It enables us to provide us with updates on HRD Corp latest initiatives and services offering while also addressing your concerns. This is important as we aim to deliver the best quality of services catered to you in the form of training, upskilling and reskilling and human capital development needs. The Open Day series is also marked for 2 flagship events, the National Forum and the Industry Panel Discussion, Reset and Redefine, that is happening this afternoon and tomorrow. Today's event will bring together government representatives, industry players and subject matter experts to discuss a wide range of pressing issues around human resource and human capital development in Malaysia. Specifically, we will be talking about the issues of living wage versus minimum wage and how this will impact national productivity. In fact, this is the 4th of the series. Some of them ask why HRD Corp need to do the topic of living wage versus minimum wage. Well, this is not in line with the training and development. And I just wanted to bring this to the attention to the panelists as well as to the attendees who are living today. In today's forum, we will discuss the topic of minimum wage versus living wage. While the minimum wage is important, it has to be fair wage, or what we term it as a living wage. As a custodian of training and development, HRD Corp is of the opinion that while we promote training and development to ensure employability, this can only make sense if employability means relevant to the wage that they are getting it. So this is just not HRD Corp come up with these topics. Before we do any topics, before we look out for the panelists, we do a lot of research and development, and there's a team who works on the topics. And every state there's a different kind of expectation, different kind of topics to be discussed. When we started off our first leg of our Open Day in Penang, we worked on the forced labor. Then we had different topics on the Sabah, Kuantan, and now in Sarawak, we are discussing about the minimum wage versus living wage. I'm very happy to say today we have the panelists who are expert in the subject. I'm very positive that all those attendees who are here today, you'll be able to take back a very fruitful knowledge from this discussions and the panelists today. Malaysia recently implemented its new minimum wage of 1,500 following the gazettement of the order by the Ministry of Human Resources. While this is a positive step for Malaysian workers, the move have also sparked conversations on living wage instead. This is because many believe that living wage is the solution needed to help Malaysians mitigate the impact of rising cost of living in the more holistic and sustainable manner. On the flip side, however, businesses, industries and trade organizations have raised concerns on the feasibility of raising the minimum wage too much and too fast, and the practicality of implementing living wages across the board without putting a huge burden on the employees and businesses. This is especially the case now, when business in Malaysia are just started to recover after effects of COVID-19 pandemic. At the same time, we know the wages or salary also depend on workers' experience, knowledge and skills. Therefore, HRD Corp also believe that Malaysia's talent should be empowered to take charge of their own income and career growth. This can only be achieved by providing them with the opportunities to strengthen the knowledge, skills and qualification in the long term. This is why our HRD Corp levy exists, to provide employers with the financial resources to train the right people for the right job at the right time. Ladies and gentlemen, in the year 2021, we funded over 588,000 training places and disbursed over 788 million in levy in the financial assistance for the various upskilling and reskilling program. These are not just limited to registered employers, but also broader Malaysian public. Beyond that, our free online training program under the platform eLatih enables Malaysian talents to embrace lifelong learning by acquiring new skills and knowledge in their own time from anywhere in any device. The recent eLatih is phenomenal. Since its launch in February 2021, eLatih has grown into a platform, over 230,000 registered users with 1,400 local and international free courses, and has recorded 550,000 enrollments since its inception. In the April this year, HRD Corp launched the HRD Corp Micro-Credential Initiative in collaboration with MQA, Malaysia Qualification Agency, Department of Skills Development, and Ministry of Higher Education. With the introduction of HRD Corp Micro-Credential, we expect to increase the number of high-quality certification programs that are funded by the HRD Corp Levy program from 4.4% to about 15% in the next year. This is important as we provide opportunities for more Malaysian talents to gain formal qualification that can benefit their current and the future job roles. This is an important step to elevate the quality of workforce, including those who have not undergone conventional education pathways and career trajectories. Now, I believe that these issues around the wages and upskilling opportunities will be some of the key questions that will be discussed in greater detail by our moderator and esteemed panelists, so that I look forward to a very interesting and engaging session. Ladies and gentlemen, every market has a different expectation, every market has a different demand, and Sarawak is no exceptional. I just wanted to share some of those data pertaining to the Sarawak training and development market. At HRD Corp, we have close to 5,900 registered employers from Sarawak. Overall, we have trained 257,000 people in Sarawak in the last 28 years. This is a very mediocre number. Training 257,000 people in the last 28 years is not a big number. And we have collected 366 million in terms of levy, and we have dispersed 247 million in terms of training and development. Overall, utilization comes up to 68%, and this is the data that covers the last 28 years or 29 years since the day HRD Corp was founded. In the year 2022, we have collected a levy of 28 million as of June, and utilization of 35%, which is much better than the number overall what we collected in the last 28 years. This is simply because HRD Corp done the expansion of the Act last year on the 1st of March, where every employers have to make a compulsory levy. Employers who operate more than 10 staffs and above, is mandatory for you to pay 1% of your total staff salary as a levy to HRD Corp for the purpose of training and development. As a custodian of training and development, HRD Corp made sure that every dollar you spend on the training development are effectively utilized. That is where in the last 12 months or so, we are putting a lot of regulations, we are putting a lot of policies to make sure that every dollar spent on the training and development, it has been effective, and the employers are able to achieve the complete transfer of training and skills to the employees. Having said that, Sarawak has 295 training providers, and they have registered 1,700 courses with HRD Corp. The accredited trainer is 14 trainers have been accredited with HRD Corp, and registered employees 92% here are SMEs. Only 8% are large MNCs that are registered with HRD Corp. Ladies and gentlemen, it is very important for every employers to understand that when we employ a training provider, we employ a high quality training provider for the purpose that you achieve the desired training and development for your employees. Last year, prior to the expansion of the Act, we got 33,000 employers, and we collected an annual levy of 800 million. On an average, when I collect 800 million, we pay out close to 68 to 70% every year. That means on average, we collect 100 ringgit levy, we pay out 68 to 70 ringgit every year as a training fee to the training provider, or maybe the training conducted by the employer themselves. But post-expansion, alhamdulillah, we have 75,000 employers in a span of less than 13 to 14 months. February 2021, we got 33,000. Today, June 2022, we got 75,000. You could see the growth from 33,000, we have moved up to 75,000. I mean, there's more employees are coming in to take up to register with HRD Corp, and they are agreed to put up the levy money for the development of human capital. We collected 800 million levy, and we are expected to collect 1.7 billion for the year 2022. This is the forecast for the year 2022. The reason why we are putting up a lot of stringent policies to enhance the quality training and development is simply because when we come to the year 2025, we will be getting 250,000 employers registered, and on an overall, we will be training 6 million people across Malaysia in the year 2025 with the annual levy collection of 5 billion. So when we collect 5 billion levy in the year 2025, likely that every employer will be very conscious in spending the money with the right training provider, with the right trainer. Every employees, when they come for the training with either with the training provider or with the employers, they look out for good transfer of skills. When can the right transfer of skill could happen? When is the right time, and who are the right people to do the right transfer of skill? Only when the training providers who have the right skills, who are better than the employees. And many times we get feedbacks that the employees or the students are better than the trainer themselves. So we have put in policies in such a way that constantly that you are either be a training provider or a trainer or a coaches, we want you to continually upgrade yourself. COVID is a classic example. When COVID was at the peak, when we are pushing for a blended learning or online training program, many trainers who have been extremely good on the face-to-face training lose out on the online space. They are not able to conduct the training effectively on the online platform. People who are able to do effectively on the online platform are not able to do the training effectively on the face-to-face. So it's a chicken and egg situation. But post-COVID, many of them have started to accept the online training program, blended learning. A lot of new things have come in thanks to COVID. If not for COVID, a lot of them wouldn't have embarked onto the digital platform or online platform. So having learned from the COVID, it is very important that we keep pace with the technology, we keep pace with the changes that happens in the training and development space. Ladies and gentlemen, HRD Corp has introduced many transformations in the last 2 years or so. Just not when we started, though we have been called in custodian of training and development 2 years ago, we rebrand ourselves to call ourselves as a custodian of human capital development, because training and development alone just doesn't bring any value proposition to the employees, the graduates who are coming to HRD Corp. We want to make sure that every training and development that happens through HRD Corp has an impact and has an outcome. These are the two mantras, two words that we constantly believe, that every dollar we spend, that we have an impact. Every training program that we do have an outcome. These two had put us a lot of expectation, and over the period we have introduced special programs, just not only for the graduates. We have special programs for the B40, we have special graduate for the freelancers, we have special program tailored for SMEs. So not only that, we have introduced a program called Seniors Back in Action. We wanted to bring back seniors who are 60 years and above, who have retired. We felt that those are the best time that we could tap into their knowledge, we can tap into their wisdom, and we want to bring back, we want them to come back to the job market and contribute their experience. So all those programs have given us a lot of effective results. In the year 2022, we focused on the placements, as we believe that placements are very key for Malaysia. Every students and graduates come to us. We wanted to make sure that after the training, they get effectively placed. That's the most important. We don't want an unemployed graduate to come to HRD Corp, get the training done, and they left as unemployed graduate after the training. It doesn't bring any value proposition to anybody. So we made it a point, there's a special team which worked on placement services. And we closely joined hand with our sister concern, Perkeso, make sure that we do the training and we give it to them and they do the placement. Overall, it has been a very effective program, and with the HRD Corp decentralizing our operations throughout the nation, and we are assured that our stakeholders in Sarawak will get a lot of first-hand information. We will be able to have much more focused focus programs that will be done in catering Sarawak market. We used to have a lot of decisions that will be done in Kuala Lumpur, but in the last 3 months, we have decided to decentralize our operations. We'll have a focus, a specialized team in Sarawak, where you don't have to go back to our headquarters for any minor decisions. This will help us to reach out to our stakeholders and employers at large. Simply because of the expansion of the Act, there's a growing employers in Sarawak. Yesterday, I happened to attend the SEDC 50th anniversary, and I was very impressed to listen to the Honorable Premier's speech. I could see the amount of the vision the Premier had, and the task that SEDC been given, and they are working on algae, and they are going to work on hydrogen, and there's a lot of new projects that's going to happen in Sarawak. And I believe that it will translate back into the skilled workforce, quality human capital. And no development will be able to happen without the quality workforce or the skilled workforce. So HRD Corp will work very closely with the state government as well as SEDC and all other stakeholders to make sure that we produce quality talent for the development of Sarawak and for the development of Malaysia. And I believe that this series around wages and upskilling opportunities will be some of the key questions. I also hope that forum leads to some constructive recommendation of what HRD Corp, the government, all the industry players can do to address the issues of employee wages in an equitable and sustainable manner moving forward. Before I end, I would like to thank everyone, especially the panelists, Perkesu, for joining us in this series of nationwide roadshows. Thank you once again for all the moderators who have taken time to be here with us this morning, and we would like to see effective discussion happen through this forum. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Datuk Shahul, for that inspiring speech and a very informative one. Diminta Datuk Shahul untuk kekal di atas pentas untuk aktiviti seterusnya, acara seterusnya. Kami ingin menjemput Yang Berbahagia Datuk Arif Farhandos, Ketua Pegawai Operasi HRD Corp, untuk naik ke pentas bagi menyertai Datuk Shahul Daud dalam acara penyampaian cenderahati kepada moderator dan barisan panelis kita pada hari ini dan juga keesokannya. Kami ingin mempersilakan moderator dan panelis Forum Nasional HRD Corp yang pertama, Datuk Palaniappan Joseph, Ahli Lembaga Pengarah HRD Corp. Seterusnya dipersilakan Datuk Sri Dr. Muhammad Uzir Mahidin, Ketua Perangkawan Jabatan Statistik Malaysia. Dipersilakan seterusnya Tuan Wan Zaifolludean, Wan Zakaria, Timbalan Pengarah Jabatan Buruh Sarawak. Hope we can keep the applause going. Dipersilakan Datuk Haji Shamsuddin Bardan, Pengarah Eksekutif Persekutuan Majikan Malaysia MEF. Dipersilakan seterusnya Puan Hajah Nur Hafizah Muhammad Arop, Pengarah Perbadanan Produktiviti Malaysia MPC Wilayah Sarawak. Dan seterusnya dipersilakan Datuk Nathan K. Suppiah, Naib Presiden Persekutuan Pekilang-Pekilang Malaysia FMM. Persilakan kesemua panelis dan moderator untuk sama-sama mengambil gambar bersama tetamu kehormat di atas pentas. Itu dia panelis dan moderator kumpulan pertama, Forum Nasional HRD Corp. Terima kasih kepada panelis dan moderator yang pertama. Dipersilakan kembali ke tempat duduk dan diminta Datuk Syahul dan Datuk Arif untuk kekal di pentas untuk saya jemput kumpulan seterusnya. Dipersilakan Encik Nizam Datuk Khalid, Persatuan Perusahaan Sarawak. Moderator. Dan seterusnya panelis panel discussion Reset. Dipersilakan Ms. Maureen Labach, ex-Fab Sarawak. Seterusnya kami ingin menjemput Encik Halman Haji Sabri, Sarawak Skills. Dan akhir sekali dipersilakan Encik Suhaimi Sulaiman, Kumpulan Media Sarawak. Rakan seperjuangan saya dahulu di TV3. Ini dia, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, moderator dan panelis panel discussion Reset. Dipersilakan untuk semuanya mengambil gambar bersama tetamu kehormat. Baiklah, terima kasih kepada panelis dan moderator. Dipersilakan duduk kembali. Dan kami akan menjemput moderator dan panelis bagi panel discussion Redefine. Dipersilakan dahulu Dr. Ayla Abdul Latif dari Universiti Malaysia Sarawak, UNIMAS. Dipersilakan Encik Clement Law Lee Wei, Gem Consultancy, Sundaram Berhad. Dan seterusnya dipersilakan Encik Ahmad Rusdi Shamsuddin, WRK Learning Development. Dan sekali lagi dipersilakan kesemua moderator dan juga panelis untuk sama-sama bergambar bersama tetamu-tetamu kehormat di atas pentas. Itu dia apa kata kita beri tepukan kepada semua panelis dan moderator kita pada hari ini yang akan menjayakan panel discussion HRD Corp. Terima kasih kepada semua panelis. Terima kasih Dato' Syahul dan Dato' Arif kerana sudi menyampaikan cenderung hati. Hadirin yang dihormati sekalian, kami ingin paparkan sebuah video penjenamaan korporat HRD Corp.
We are fortunate that the government started putting the groundwork in place to develop a competent and knowledgeable workforce 3 decades ago. This led to the passing of the Human Resource Development Act in 1992, which went on to establish the Human Resources Development Council. HRDC started operating in January 1993 with the sole purpose of collecting levy from employers and disbursing it for employee training programs. This was done through the Human Resources Development Fund, HRDF. Initially, the Human Resources Development Council supported the manufacturing sector only. In the following years, we expanded into various industries that included hotels, tourism, shipping, aviation, postal, telecommunications, and computer technology. The growth into these new industries created a need for us to establish our presence outside of the Klang Valley. In 1998, we set up our regional offices in Penang, Johor, Sabah, and Sarawak. In that same year, we became the first agency under the Ministry of Human Resources to be ISO certified by CIRIM. On 16th May 2001, Human Resources Development Council was incorporated as Pembangunan Sumber Manusia Berhad, PSMB. After the incorporation, the Human Resources Development Act 1992 was replaced by the Pembangunan Sumber Manusia Berhad Act 2001. HRDF recorded another milestone when we were appointed as the training coordinator for the National SME Development Council. The National Human Resource Centre, NHRC, was established in 2011 to provide strategic and operational HR support for businesses and industries. The NHRC has since repurposed itself and is well on its way to becoming Malaysia's leading human resources think tank, geared towards helping to shape and influence policy decisions. In 2018, we worked with the World Bank to introduce the National Workforce Human Capital Development Blueprint. In 2019, we introduced Trainer Development Framework, TDF, and Trainer Evaluation Effectiveness, TEE, to ensure continuous improvements to our training courses. Like every organization in the world, 2020 and the ensuing pandemic proved to be a challenging year for us. With support from the government, we introduced the Penjana HRDF program with a focus on 5 priorities.
We continue the momentum through meaningful programs like our e-learning platform eLatte, our coaching, training and job matching portal HRD Corp Placement Center, and our digital marketplace Janapurna.
We implemented our biggest expansion to date, covering 18 sectors and 238 subsectors. Soon, we will be supporting more than 250,000 registered employers and up to 6.1 million employees. Strengthening our presence across the nation, we have also established offices in various strategic locations throughout Malaysia.
We accomplished many things throughout our 28-year history that would not have been possible without the support of the Ministry of Human Resources and the collaboration of our stakeholders.
As we move into the post-COVID-19 economic recovery period, it is important that we create an environment that will empower Malaysians businesses, workforce and talents to thrive. To that end, the Ministry of Human Resources, together with HRD Corp, will be pursuing a Human Resources 5.0 initiative for Malaysia and our counterparts within Asia-Pacific region. HR 5.0 will drive the development of the future of work by humanizing technology, where talents are provided with the opportunities to embrace technology in their roles in order to improve productivity, all without sacrificing their health and well-being. I am very proud of the significant role that HRD Corp has played in Malaysia's workforce development efforts in the last 28 years. And I look forward to HRD Corp pioneering the more training and development programs that will drive HR 5.0 and support the nation's future aspirations. Congratulations, HRD Corp.
The key to HRD Corp's success and longevity for the last 28 years is our people. What unites us is our shared commitment to HRD Corp. This is reflected in our core values of passion, integrity, leadership, loyalty, agility, and responsiveness. I am extremely proud to be a part of this great organization. We are HRD
我
Corp.
们是 HRD Corp.
HRD Corp.
Nangga HRD Corp.
我们是 HRD Corp. HRD Corp.
Saya HRD Corp. Ham HRD Corp.
We are
We are HRD Corp.
Hadirin sekalian, HRDF kini HRD Corp dengan aura yang lebih bertenaga dan lebih berwawasan untuk membantu rakyat Malaysia. Sebelum kita teruskan, kita berikan sedikit masa untuk dipersiapkan pentas yang akan digunakan untuk panel discussion. Dan sementara itu, saya ingin memberi sedikit makluman tentang forum hari ini. Forum Nasional HRD Corp yang akan bermula sebentar lagi akan membincangkan mengenai Malaysia at the crossroads, living wage versus minimum wage and its impact on national productivity. Dan ingin saya ingatkan kepada semua hadirin bahawa di penghujung sesi forum akan dilaksanakan ataupun diadakan sesi soal jawab dengan panelis. Maka puan-puan dan puan-puan, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan bolehlah mengajukan soalan-soalan kepada panelis menerusi Slido yang tertera di atas skrin. Soalan-soalan bolehlah diajukan dengan mengimbas kod QR seperti yang tertera. Anda akan dibawa ke halaman Slido di mana anda boleh menaip soalan dan menekan butang submit sepanjang diskusi berlangsung nanti. Dan soalan-soalan ini akan dipilih dan akan ditulis dan dipaparkan di atas skrin supaya anda boleh melihatnya dan akan dibacakan oleh panelis tersebut. Ladies and gentlemen, in this forum we will take a deeper look at how Malaysia at the crossroads between living wage versus minimum wage and its impact on national productivity, following the gazettement of order by the Ministry of Human Resources, which resulted in the recent implementation of a new minimum wage of 1,500 in Malaysia, the concept of a living wage and how it can assist citizens in reducing the effects of the recent increase in the cost of living that have been discussed in great detail. According to Bank Negara's report, the living wage beyond making ends meet 2018, a single individual would need at least 2,700 a month, whereas a couple of 2 children would require 6,500 to survive in Kuala Lumpur. Aside from the debate, businesses, industry and trade organizations have expressed concerns about the feasibility of raising the minimum wage often and rapidly, particularly at a time when Malaysia is on the verge of post-pandemic economic recovery. Therefore, the forum will discuss the current situation as well as the challenges and measures that could be taken by the government and industry players in ensuring the equitable solution of this dilemma. So if we are we ready? So with that, I would like to hand over to the panelists and the moderator. I would like to invite Datuk Palaniappan Joseph, Ahli Lembaga Pengarah HRD Corp, to the stage to take the seat. Please welcome Datuk Palaniappan Joseph. Next, we'd like to invite Datuk Sri Dr. Muhammad Uzir Mahidin, Ketua Perangkawan Jabatan Statistik Malaysia. Let's welcome Tuan Wan Zaifolludean Wan Zakaria, Timbalan Pengarah Jabatan Buruh Sarawak. Next, we'd like to invite Dato Haji Shamsuddin, Bardan, Pengarah Eksekutif Persekutuan Majikan Malaysia MEF. And let's welcome Puan Hajah Nur Hafizah Muhammad Arop, Pengarah Perbadanan Produktiviti Malaysia MPC Wilayah Sarawak. And last but not least, please welcome Datuk Nathan K. Suppiah, Naib Presiden Persekutuan Pekilang-Pekilang Malaysia, FMM. All right, with that, I would like to check with Datuk Palaniappan Joseph. You have your mic with you and it's working? All right, your voice is okay? All right, so I'll hand over to you.
All right, thank you. Thank
All
you,
right.
Nadine
All
Sharifah
yours.
Shafati. A very good morning to the honorable guests, members of the conference here. Thank you very much for being present. And I think it's my honor to moderate this session with a distinguished panelist covering various areas of expertise within the human resource as well as the overall statistics or facts and also the employer's perspective related to the wages. First of all, I think I wish to congratulate HRD Corp for selecting this topic. Probably in HRD conference, this is probably a rare topic to be discussed because most of the time we take on subject matters that's related to training, capacity and all that. But I believe the wages issue is actually a matter of great concern and interest for all members, be it from the employer's perspective or it an employee or policymakers. Right? So the minimum wage has been a subject of great concern and interest. The recent implementation of effective 1st May 2022 of the 1,500, I think we had enough, probably the info and the impact related to the implementation. So today, the subject that we're going to dwell, it is not only the minimum wage, which I think we will be very familiar, but we're also going to talk about living wage. All right, so living wage perspective is much more broader perspective of the minimum wage point of view. In fact, if you look at ILO, we are also talking about median wage. Right, so it's a concept of minimum wage, median wage, and also living wage. All right. In our nation, we are still predominantly focusing on the minimum wage because probably we have evolved from a non-fixed wage situation to a kind of a standard which the minimum wage is imposed. But the developed nations and those economic that has moved forward have also embarked wages from the perspective of how do we define the right wage? Do we absolutely focus on the minimum wage per se, or the living wage should be the indicator, or the median wage would be a kind of a balancer between those two impact? I think these are the perspective, a broader perspective of wage philosophy and also the application in the various countries and nations which have embarked on the minimum wage journey. I think gone are the days that whether we discuss, do we need minimum wage or not? I think we have crossed that phase, we have crossed that fasa. All right, we have now moved into a phase where we are talking about how do we make it right. It's already happening, so how do we make it right in the context of being fair and a win-win solution to the employee, employer, and also to the economy of the nation. Right, so I think with me today, we have got a very, very a balanced panelist. I think I wish to congratulate the Secretariat for having a kind of perspective of a panelist who doesn't carry one single point of view, but we have people who could actually share with us from various perspectives. And I always say, despite various philosophies and concepts and all that, one particular thing which tells you absolute truth and give you a real fundamental, and it speaks with very clear clarity, is actually numbers. No matter what we say, numbers actually will give you stories that what philosophies cannot tell. And numbers is something so unique. By a mere figure, you could actually come out with a very fantastic narrative, and it will be so substantial. And also I think we have that privilege because as the nation embark on various challenges, we need to have someone to tell that, look, sit down, the facts, the figure says this, can we come back to the drawing board with the right facts and figures? And I'm always amazed with the power of the numbers because I think our first panelist, Datuk Sri, is going to touch on that perspective, being the chief statistician of the country. So we're going to have someone to talk to us from the perspective of figures, facts, figures, all real, accountable, and from where that we can start the base of the discussion. I think, and then followed by, we have got our second panelist who is going to touch on the perspective of the policy itself, the minimum wages policy, and then we have got how do we look the perspective of wages from the productivity point of view. We have got someone from the MPC, and then we have got a representative from the employers. We have got from the Malaysian Employers Federation, as well as Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers, where they are an effective component in making the wages system right in the country. All right, so we have got a kind of a balanced panel here to give you an overall perspective of that issue. And probably I hope today we could, at the end of the session today, we could have a takeaway in terms of what would be the right perspective to view the issue of minimum wage versus living wage. What would be the way forward that we should embark as a community of employers, employee, and policymakers that would be good for the nation as we move towards a new phase of economy, a new challenge, a new dynamism. Right. So without what I'm going to do, it's going to be, I've got 5 panelists. We have got substantial issues to be addressed. So I propose that we take on this forum on a basis of, we'll finish the presentations first. All right. Then once we have completed the presentation by each panelist, then we will move on to the Q&A sessions. So that will give us some good time to digest and then take it on from there. And we have also, what do you call that, I think as has been announced, you can actually post your questions via the Slido, and then we'll get the questions to be summarized on the critical questions to take up. And we will also have the audience subsequently to move on with the questions. All right? Let me just move on with that overview. Get this right because Dato Sri Dr. Muhammad Uzir Mahidin, I think, who is our first panel speaker, he is currently the Chief Statistician of the Department of Statistics Malaysia, and then has served the department for the past 31 years. I think probably everyone in the country who is a policymaker knows him. I believe, I was told yesterday, he said he just presented an overview of the inflation situation of the country to the Prime Minister, so that we don't look at the concept of inflation from merely a single or 2 items that the price has gone up, but we look at it from an overall perspective. I think Dato Sri has been a very key person in getting the facts and the figures right for the country. And I think I was just telling you, I'm also a member of National Wages Consultative Committee. So whenever that we are going to have some very difficult meeting, our chairman will ensure that he attends the meeting and he'll be presenting all the statistics, and by the time we finish, half of the questions you want to ask is diluted already. Because you'll be thinking that how to ask this question with that figure. So I think it's a great strategy to have him on board. And Dato Sri, I think it's our honor that you could make your time available to join us today in Sarawak for the members here to listen to what is happening in the country related to this. With that overview, I hand over to you. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And very good morning. Thank you very much bagi Datuk Palaniappan, our moderator for this session. Yang bahagia Datuk Sarul Daud, Ketua Eksekutif HRD Corp. Yang bahagia Datuk Arif Farhan, Cik Roni Ambrose, my fellow panelists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizer for giving me this very great opportunity for me to share some insight on the topic for today. And of course, as mentioned by Datuk Moderator, I have no choice. I have to put a lot of facts and numbers. So bear with me. And of course, in order for us to really follow through all the facts and numbers, need some strong, retention on our imagination and look at the what is inside, what is behind the numbers. And I always mention to my team, every numbers, every statistic not right to exist without explanation. It's very important. For today's discussion, this is my outline of presentation. I will provide a little bit overview on the economy and labor market statistics. Then I also to put forward some of the figure on the salary and wages performance and how we see the impact of the minimum wage implementation. And we see also about the labor productivity with salaries and wages, and I also offer some conclusion. It's a bit on the overview of the economy and labor market statistics. So this very quick overview on the landscape of economy. Very important that to know our economy is a broad-based economy. We have agriculture, we have manufacturing, construction and services. So as shown on the slide, beside our growth for the Q1 is on the positive growth as shown on the slide. But if we look at the key sector, there are some sectors still show the contraction. So on the slide, for example, in the construction, we experience growth 9.5%. But on the services, the growth is 1.9%. Construction still contraction, and negative 5.2%. And also on the mining, small concern 0.7%. And of course, if we say that to the public that when we say that our economy is getting better, there are some of people that not have that same feeling, because as mentioned, this GDP is comprised of many sectors. So if the people are, for example, in the agriculture sector, they don't feel the growth, because as shown in the numbers is still in the contraction. That's the insight. Some people, they just look at the headline numbers, but if we look at the more at the detail level, we can see. Of course, if we look at manufacturing as the whole, maybe we see growth at 9.5%. But if we go at the greater detail, for example, on the textile, furniture, maybe not as good as E&E sectors. And if we look at the bottom side on the composition employee, so it shows that the composition employee is salary and wages. So if we put the overall earning or the value generated by the company 100, so the amount goes to employee is now stay at 37.2%. It's getting better compared to 2011, 32.1%. But if we compare with the other country on the right side, lower end, You can see, for example, Australia, the return to compensation employee for the workers 42.7, and United Kingdom 53.4, and United States 5.4. So we still hovering around 30% plus, and of course we are inspired to go. Our target is about 40% for the next few years. And next, this one, if we can also look at more detail by subsector. So as shown on the slide, for the services sector, is accounted almost 2/3 of overall compensation employee. So this is in line with the position of this sector. We know that services sector is the largest contributor to the national economy. So in terms of number of employees also, we have more than half our 50.6 million employees in the service sector. And the number of CV, compensated value added in services, is about 41% in 2020. And the average salary in salary and wages for the services is 2,981. While in the construction, we still have our industry that based on the labor intensive in activity, constituted 72.7% CE in 2020. And the mining sector is capital intensive industry, so contribution of SNC in the overall is about 8.9%. So this to give some flavor about how the salary and wages across sectors. And we can see, for example, in the services sector, our service sector like food and beverages, and also related the tourism related industry, we have about 3 million employees in the tourism related industry, and we can say that we still dependent a lot on the labor for that matter. And I move to the Malaysia labour market landscape. So when we talk about the labour market landscape, we must look into the three main components, namely the labour supply, then the labour demand, and also we have to look also on the labour productivity. So following the resumption of the most economic activity and the transition of all states to the phase 4 of NRP during Q1 2022, all labour market indicators signify a positive performance. As such, the labour force is improving with the increase of employed person and declining unemployed person. And similarly, the job market recorded a recovery indicated by the increase in number of field jobs, which in line with the expansion of global and domestic activities. While in terms of labour productivity, both labour productivity per hours work and labour productivity per employment remain a positive growth. This is looking at the economy and labour market scenario across the globe. We can see that economic performance of the selected countries register positive growth, with China recording higher GDP growth, while United States, Singapore, and the Republic of Korea are moderated. Similarly, Malaysia economy also recorded a positive growth of 5.0% in Q1 2020, mainly driven by continued revival of services, manufacturing, and agriculture sector. And the improving labour market position is parallel with the expansion of the external trade sector, which has subsequently strengthened the economic growth. And in terms of unemployment, as shown on the slide, is been continuously declined since Q3 2021 to record 4.1% in Q1 2020. And in overall, the monthly economic performance have shown a recovery momentum from January to March 2022, while the unemployment rate in April 22 show a month-on-month decline 3.9%. Now I move on to share with everyone about our salary and wages performance. So on this slide, we can see another important indicator that is closely related to the labor market, none other than salary and wages. There are three main indicators need to be taken into account in analyzing the salary and wages. The first would be the number of recipients. According to our data from DOSM, salary and wage report for the year 2020, the number of recipients increased marginally to 9.39 million people as compared to 9.2 million 2019. When we talk about these numbers, maybe many of us know that the total of our employment is about 50 million plus. But when we refer for this number, is referred to the employees, because we have a number on the this one is on the economy, economy industry. We have the public sectors, and also we have also SME is included from this statistic. And inversely, the mean monthly salary and wages also indicated a negative growth, 9% to record RM 2,933, and monthly salary wages recorded a double-digit negative growth of 50.6%, indicated half the employee person earn less than 2,060. This is very important, maybe to give some of the base for our discussion. I reiterate again about half of our employed person earn less than 2,062. And this look at the mean and monthly salary wages by economy sector, where we can see that the mean and monthly salary wages, the highest mean recorded by the mining and quarry at 5,064. However, this mean salary wages sector recorded a decline 17.7%. Agriculture sector recorded the lowest mean salary and wages, RN 1598, reduced 20%. However, report to our latest quarterly numbers show that these two main sectors, manufacturing and services, has shown improvement over the pandemic period. And now I move on the look at how the implementation of the minimum wage, and maybe I can share it a bit on the statistic how what the impact would like. So if we look at the chronology, in this country, the implementation of minimum wage was announced for the first time in July 2012 as one of the initiatives to support the low-income household, and the minimum wage order 2012 was formed and enforced on 1st January 2013 with minimum monthly of RM 900 per month for Peninsular Malaysia and RM 800 in Sabah dan Sarawak. And throughout the year, the minimum wage was revised 4 times, with the last amended to minimum wage was 1st February 2020 to RM 1,200 after the introduction of the 2020 budget. And the announcement of the new minimum wage came on 19 March 2020 and is scheduled to take effect on May 1st, 2020. And as shown in the graph on the slide, we can see that around 30% of employees earn below 1,500 in 2020. And we look at the minimum wage implementation around the globe. This something is a very key take-home point, maybe from my presentation. We can show that we can see as high as 12 USD 0.14 per hours in Australia, and the lower on Mexico, $1.05 per hours, and Malaysia stood at $1.84 per hours. And on the right side, we can see our nominal mean earning hours, average hours. So actually, our mean nominal hours, average hours is 14.91, and we have to average hours work is 43 hours per week, and our mean nominal earning is 355. Even though we have the minimum rate, but actually what translate in the market based our calculation is 355, as shown on the slide. Is equivalent to RM 14 ringgit 91 cent. And how minimum wage that we can see through the lens of the inflation. So based on the time series, it was found that there was an increase in the inflation rate year after the implementation of minimum wage in 2013 and 2016, and how for 2019 the effect could not be identified due to a pandemic occurred. Of course, based on because this inflation is something that related to the economy. When we increase the wage, maybe increase the demand, at the same time increase the cost of production. So there are some relationship between the wages and also inflation. It's a positive relationship. And how about the linking the labor productivity with salary and wages? I have a 3-minute injury time. Is it injury time? No problem. It's about to finish, about less than about 7 slides. So linking on the labor productivity and with salary and wages, I know it is something that we can dwell for this discussion, maybe a lot of question on this. So we can see that impact of pandemic to the salary and wages 23, we see the recorded the first decline since the statistics were published. And for 2021, in line the country economic recovery, the value of mean and median salary wages is expected to increase as compared to 2020. And in terms of efficiency, labor productivity as measured by value added per employment rebounded to 1.8% in 2021 after recorded negative 5.3% in 2020. And in terms of the labor productivity per hour work, although value added per hour work recorded fall compared to 2030, its value was higher than 2091. This indicates the occurrence of increase in efficiency during the pandemic period. And if we look at this on this slide on the performance of the productive based on the economic activity, we can see that manufacturing sector is the only sector that has surpassed the value of labor productivity before the pandemic. The performance of manufacturing sector was driven by electrical, electronic, optical products sector, which recorded the highest growth for the both property that we measure. And linking with the wage productivity growth link, so we can see that in the line chart from 2011 and 2020, the real wage growth in Malaysia have outpaced the productivity. This is something that we can discuss. So real wage growth outpaced the productivity. The strength in wage growth in Malaysia signify the employer compensate workers more appropriately for the output produced, improving the wage to the productivity ratio. And we look at the breakdown by economy sector, the manufacturing sector productivity grew as fast real wage of 1.8%, indicating that the increase of additional revenue by hiking the wage rate is equal to hiring new workers. Meanwhile, agriculture activity productivity grew marginally, although the real wage are stagnant. However, mining and quarrying sector productivity growth decreased at negative 0.6% compared to its salaries wages. And we compare the labor productivity with the behavior of wages. The relationship between wages and productivity primarily reflect living standard. As productivity grows, the amount of income generated over time it increases. I think everyone agree about this, and it creates the potential to improve overall living standard. and looking at the wage productivity growing around the world, we may conclude that higher labor productivity is often accompanied by higher wages. Most of the countries listed show that higher wages indicated higher productivity, except for Singapore, which is vice versa. And as middle income country, Malaysia has a level of productivity below the developed economies. Thus, the wage rate earned by Malaysia workers is also relatively low compared to those advanced economy. This is something maybe we can ponder how we can address the cost of living. At the same time, we have start with the kind of the low wages, low productivity. So sometimes we try to compare our price of our grocery item with other country. Maybe we say much cheaper, but their salary are much higher than us. This is sometimes when we try to make the comparable is not on the same level. You know, it's something interesting we can discuss. Datuk Moderator, I about to finish, but I would also share some story that how we as a country, how we feel when we see this chart. How in 1970s we are enjoy watching Malaysia play football with South Korea. I grow within the environment. Even though we don't have the TV, we listen to radio. They broadcasted, oh, the goal is controlled by Malaysia, pass to the Korea area. We are at par with Korea. So how we see at the chart now, how Korea in terms of economy, we are in the similar footers, but at the end now the gap is very far ahead. The key on the slide, this is related to the productivity. They go really on the capital productivity and less dependent on the labor. This is also another. This number is not from just from Department of Statistics. This is from the analysis from the data from the international perspective, and we can see some people when I show this slide, they ask me whether we still have time to catch up. I reply that not say about whether we have time or not. We have to whether we have to have the good will to. Do we have the courage to make change the circumstances. So I think this all of my presentation. The rest is more on the just my thought on how we can inline the wages with the productivity. We need the workers' motivation, low staff turnover. I got the feedback currently now with the shortage of the labor. Kan? In fact, in DOSM also we have the issue now. We have a lot of, after 1-2 years, we recruit, train them, they left, go to, because they are very have get the double pay sometimes. Compare when we are become very experienced on how to handle the statistic, because we want to train our staff as the data scientists. The market out there is very huge. I think now we have the issue on the retention also, and the increase of PC at the micro and macro level. And today I posted to the group, one of the key of the productivity, you must stay healthy. I mentioned to my colleague today, 21 kilometers every morning. You want to handle the complexity of the country, to handle all the expectation. You need very strong stamina, not physically, but your mind. You have to absorb the challenge and the issues when it comes. I think this. I think I leave it. This one, how we can differentiate between a living wage, medium salary and wages, and median wage. There are some discussion on this. We can say that living wage is the wage level that could afford the minimum acceptable living standard. This includes the ability to participate in social meaningful, the opportunity of personal and family development, freedom from severe financial stress. In this country, more than 60% of our take-home income goes to the financial commitment for the car, loans, and our leftover about 40%. With the increasing of the grocery item, we can understand how the difficulty. And medium salary wages is such half the employee in the population under consideration. In our calculation, our medium monthly salary is 2062, and our minimum wage is 1,500. With that, I conclude my presentation. The Malaysian new minimum wage is still far behind when we compare to other countries. Although minimum wage cushion the wage inequality in the country, we are still compensated quite unfairly for our productivity. Malaysian workers are paid less than workers in benchmark economies. Minimum wage not only help reduce wage dispersion and channel productivity gain into higher wage, but also contribute to higher labor productivity. Adoption of innovation and automation technology will increase efficiency and productivity, as well as uplift the current labor market structure in the long run, and the equilibrium between wage and productivity exists, and finding the equilibrium point require participation from all key parties, especially policy makers, businesses, and workers. And I have dedicated song entitled "Statistics in Bloom in Harmony." So we can say we have one dream with unity, one love with harmony. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dato Sri. A thorough, comprehensive presentation, this indeed. I think, as I said earlier, setting the stage is very important. Setting it right with the right figures, right numbers, so that we get an overview of the overall perspective of what that we are dealing with. And I think probably for many of us here who may not have the benefit of hearing such figure from Dato Sri, I think what he has done is that he has taken all the relevant facts, he has concised it and made it into a very structured format that is relevant for us to capture. That is why I think throughout this session we could relay, because a lot of facts and figures we hear, and the real reality of what is actually in that segmentation is truly understood. I'm equally amazed, Dato Sri, to see the comparison points that you have put in, the analysis from the perspective of median wage versus and also the comparative to the productivity. And I mean, we understand that the dynamic of wages is not actually, cannot be straitjacketed into a one perspective for the whole country, because the productivity and the level is also varies according to the individual industry. And also the mechanism in addressing productivity versus wage also varies according to the sector. All right, so I think these are some of the key points. In fact, I wish to relay your question on South Korea. I think the point that you raised, I concur with you very much, because during an early stage of my career, I started with a Japanese company, and they were having keen competition because they were the market leader, and they had a 1997-98 economic crisis changed the landscape of economy. Probably there's a lot of relation to this, to what's happening now, because COVID has also provided a similar impact to the global economy, all right? So the circumstances could be different. The reasoning that it happens varies, but I think the impact and the way it is now cushioning through the global economy looks very much similar. So at the micro level, when we were trying to address the productivity and the cost competitiveness of the Korean product at the beginning of 1997-1998, when the crisis hits, everybody thinks that Korean will not be able to recover from that impact that they faced. And then some of us who have very good quality and cost competitiveness felt that it will be a long time. But within a span of 2 years, they came out very segmentally with focusing on productivity, design, and competitiveness. And then one of our factory, huge factory, which used to export to US market, got to close down. We retrenched about 2,000 people because our manufacturing cost comes to a level that equivalent to the market selling price. So that is the impact, I think, when we don't manage the economy, the competitiveness, productivity, and versus the cost that we're looking at in both ways. So a narrative of that nature, I think, makes me to recall, it is same circumstances. It's a global effect to the economy, and a lot of countries are recovering, and probably because this is a new phase of recovery, the ground is settled to a close to zero kind of situation. So any country which capitalize on this challenge positively or productively probably may be able to bring in some major shift to the growth and the productivity of the nation. I think you have also triggered a lot of interesting point, Dato Sri, but I think it's also a very good take on for us to move on with the other panelists so that we can see how this matter is being pursued. And I'm sure there will be a lot of questions, not only from the audience, but I believe from the panelists as well, to further digest on some of the slides that. So probably during the Q&A, we'll allocate some time for us to look through. Let me just now move to the second presenter. Panelis kita pada pagi ini, panelis kedua adalah Encik Wan Zaifolludean Wan Zakaria, Timbalan Pengarah Jabatan Tenaga Kerja Sarawak. Beliau mempunyai pengalaman 29 tahun sebagai pengamal sumber manusia in various capacity. Encik Wan Zaifolludean telah request pada saya, said, Datuk sila introduce saya dalam bahasa Melayu. Alright, so I have to switch to that, and Encik Wan juga akan membuat penerangan beliau seterusnya dalam bahasa Melayu. So thank you very much. Over to you.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Terima kasih kepada Datuk Moderator, my fellow panelists, head of departments, board of directors, HRDC dan tuan-tuan dan puan sekalian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi. Apa khabar kita orang semua? Okey ke? Baik. Alhamdulillah, tajuk presentation saya pada pagi ini is very simple. It is about pematuhan gaji minimum di Sarawak. So mungkin tajuk yang akan menarik perhatian kepada majikan-majikan yang ada di Sarawak. Saya akan membahagikan presentation saya kepada 4 skop, iaitu berkenaan dengan dasar objektif dasar gaji minimum. That means the fundamental of implementation of minimum wages policy. Yang kedua, tajuk berkenaan dengan evolusi gaji minimum Malaysia sebagaimana telah pun disentuh sepintas lalu oleh Yang Berbahagia Datuk Uzir. Dan perintah gaji minimum 2020 yang telah pun dilaksanakan bermula daripada 1 Mei 2022 dan dapatan rumusan daripada apa yang dibincangkan. So kalau kita pergi kepada objektif dasar gaji minimum, sebagaimana yang kita sedia maklum bahawa objektif yang pertama ialah untuk menggalakkan industri meningkatkan rantaian pengeluaran dengan melabur dalam teknologi dan meningkatkan produktiviti. So tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, apabila kerajaan memperkenalkan gaji minimum, kerajaan telah mengambil kira bagaimana industri-industri yang ada di dalam negara kita supaya mereka memikirkan tentang selain daripada produktiviti dan gaji, hendaklah diselaraskan dengan meningkatkan produktiviti mereka dengan mengalihkan daripada industri yang bersifat labor insentif kepada skill ataupun kepada automated punya industries. Saya sudah masa untuk majikan terutamanya di Sarawak lah, untuk mengalihkan industri bisnes mereka kepada industri yang lebih berdasarkan kepada penggunaan mesin, penggunaan dan untuk menjadikan pekerja-pekerja yang mereka yang sedia ada sebagai skill workers, menggunakan robotik punya teknologi, and then dapat juga menjadikan perniagaan mereka satu perniagaan yang dapat bersaing dengan industri-industri yang lain. And then yang kedua, objektif dasar gaji minimum yang kedua ialah untuk memastikan keperluan asas pekerja dan keluarga mereka dapat dipenuhi. Dalam hal ini, gaji minimum di Malaysia kita berharap akan dapat menjadikan apa yang kita namakan sebagai breadwinner, ketua keluarga dapat menyara keluarga mereka, terutamanya kepada golongan B40. Jabatan buruh ataupun labor department ni dia lebih cater kepada those yang bergaji yang dianggap sebagai B40. Mereka inilah yang akan menyara keluarga mereka, dan apabila menyara keluarga mereka, kita mengharap basic wages yang mereka terima akan dapat membantu mereka sekurang-kurangnya menampung ataupun dapat dalam dari segi livelihood of the families of the workers, so dapat menampung ataupun menyara keluarga mereka. Yang ketiga, objektif yang ketiga, memberi perlindungan sosial yang mencukupi kepada para pekerja. Untuk kita bernasib baik sebab di Malaysia kita ada perkeso, kita ada sokso yang dapat sekurang-kurangnya menyediakan social insurance kepada pekerja-pekerja, dan berkenaan dengan social safety nets yang tu lebih kepada living wages yang akan dibincangkan oleh panellists yang lain. Kita mengharapkan bila increase of minimum wages, dia akan juga dalam masa yang sama increase kita punya purchasing power dalam menyara keluarga. Dan dalam masa yang sama juga objektif minimum wages ialah untuk mengurangkan atau to reduce poverty yang ada dalam negara kita, terutamanya di kalangan B40. Okey. Dan yang keempat, mungkin boleh dibincangkan dengan lebih detail lagi, ialah bagaimana objektif dasar gaji minimum adalah untuk mengurangkan our dependence on foreign workers. Dalam rancangan Malaysia yang ke-11, rancangan Malaysia yang ke-12, kita memang dah set target untuk mengurangkan pengambilan pekerja asing, dan untuk mengurangkan pengambilan pekerja asing, kita hendaklah memberi keutamaan kepada pengambilan pekerja-pekerja tempatan dan try to retain the existence of pekerja yang sedia ada, supaya mereka dapat bersama-sama bekerja dalam company dengan tempoh yang lebih lama. That's mean menjadi tanggungjawab. That's why lah kita mengadakan perbincangan pada hari ini, agar tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, owner of the industries, businesses, dapat menggunakan secara maksimum levy yang tuan-tuan dan puan-puan telah bayar kepada HRDC untuk optimize latihan yang telah pun dicarum, jumlah bayaran yang telah dicarum kepada HRDC dan optimize latihan-latihan yang disediakan oleh HRDC. So dengan upskill and reskilling the workers. So tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, kita move on kepada evolusi gaji minimum di Malaysia sebagaimana yang telah pun dibincangkan secara sepintas lalu oleh panelis yang pertama. Gaji minimum di Malaysia mula pada 2012, 10 years ago, yang mana kalau tuan-tuan dan puan-puan masih ingat lagi, sebelum zaman gaji minimum dilaksanakan tahun 2012, berapa gaji pekerja-pekerja di Malaysia? Berapa gaji orang yang bekerja di sektor peruncitan? Berapa gaji orang yang bekerja di kilang-kilang di Malaysia, especially yang di luar bandar, especially SMEs, small and medium enterprises? Kalau tuan-tuan dan puan-puan masih ingat bahawa gaji pada pekerja Malaysia pada masa itu, of course kebanyakannya kalau di luar bandar lah, adalah di bawah 900. Kita akan lihat bagaimana di ladang pekerja-pekerja di Malaysia pada masa itu bergaji dalam 650, ada yang gaji 500, ada gaji 450. Yang kerja di kedai runcit ada yang bergaji 250 pada masa itu, sebelum implementation of minimum wages. Dan apabila kerajaan memperkenalkan kali pertama pelaksanaan gaji minimum pada 2012, gaji sebulan pada masa itu telah ditetapkan pada 900, kadar 900 di Semenanjung dan 800 di Sabah dan Sarawak. And then pada 2016, kita dapat melihat kenaikan pelaksanaan ataupun gaji minimum kepada Semenanjung Malaysia RM1,000 sebulan dan Sabah Sarawak RM920 sebulan. And then pada tahun 2018, kita dapati bahawa terdapat perbezaan antara pelaksanaan gaji minimum di sektor majlis perbandaran dan juga sektor di majlis bandaraya. Gaji-gaji yang dilaksanakan itu mengikut pihak berkuasa tempatan. Begitu juga pada tahun 2020, bermula 1 Februari 2020, gaji sebulan telah dinaikkan kepada 1,200 di Semenanjung Malaysia dan 1,000 di Sabah dan Sarawak, bergantung juga kepada majlis daerah ataupun majlis bandaran dan juga Dewan Bandaraya. And then berkuasa pada 1 Mei 2022, 1 Mei 2022, kerajaan telah menaikkan gaji minimum kepada RM1,500. Ia ini kepada majikan-majikan yang menggajikan 5 orang pekerja ke atas. Okey? Dan ada satu kategori pekerja-pekerja yang mana yang kepada majikan yang menggajikan pekerja kurang daripada 5 orang tetapi dikategorikan sebagai profesional punya pekerja, walaupun dia menggajikan 5 orang ke bawah, maksudnya 4 orang ke bawah, mereka tetap juga dikenakan gaji minimum sebanyak 1,500 lah. So those majikan yang menggajikan 4 orang pekerja ke bawah. Inilah yang perintah gaji minimum ini diberi tempoh kepada mereka untuk memulakan gaji minimum, penguatkuasaan pemberian gaji-gaji minimum ini bermula 1 hari bulan Januari 2023. I will elaborate on this selepas slides berikut. So di sini ada tertera di dalam slide perkataan MASCO. Apa itu MASCO? MASCO stand for Malaysian Standard Classification of Occupation, yang mana di dalam MASCO ni ada diletakkan kategori-kategori pekerja, yang mana kalau tuan-tuan dan puan-puan lihat pada meja group 2, ada diklasifikasikan occupation untuk golongan profesional ini. Antara yang boleh saya highlight di sini ialah mereka yang terlibat dalam bisnes ataupun industries yang dalam kategori finance, dalam science, engineering, health, teaching profession, dalam business, administrative, information, communication, creativity, digital, legal punya profession, hospitality, and activity, dan banyak lagi dia punya so on and so forth. Dia punya list is very long. You all boleh refer list ini di dalam laman web MOHR. Okay? Dan saya ingin juga menyentuh bahawa gaji minimum 1,500 ini kalau ikut takrif, kalau kita ikut takrif gaji minimum yang ada di dalam akta, ialah bermaksud dalam section 2, ertinya gaji pokok, basic wages, sebagaimana yang ditetapkan di bawah section 23 ini. Kalau you all refer kepada Akta Majlis Perundingan Gaji Negara 2011 lah, Akta 372. So, and then untuk orang yang bergaji, majikan yang menggajikan 5 orang pekerja yang lebih, yang mana mereka diberikan gaji untuk kadar gaji sejam per hour, per hour di Malaysia ialah RM7.21. Untuk yang pekerja 5 orang ke atas lah, untuk orang pekerja yang 5 orang ataupun 4 orang ke bawah, starting from 1 Januari, dia mereka akan start pada 1 Januari 2023. Okey, untuk rumusan pembentangan ni, especially for those Sarawakian employers, I nak maklumkan bahawa kadar pelanggaran, sebab Labour Department of course sebagai sebuah agensi penguatkuasaan, enforcement agencies that yang mengimplement minimum wage. So for previous gaji minimum, pelanggaran yang kita dapat kesan tak banyak. That's mean tahniah kepada majikan-majikan di Sarawak kerana banyak yang mematuhi kadar gaji minimum sebelum ni. Yang masa kadar gaji minimum 1,200 hanya 2.1% sahaja yang didapati hasil daripada pemeriksaan yang melanggar undang-undang. So untuk gaji minimum 2022 ni kita masih lagi dalam pemerhatian, masih lagi dalam tempoh education lah. Not straight away orang kata ambil stick untuk denda dan buat pendakwaan dan sebagainya. Just kita akan banyak memberi khidmat nasihat dan try to educate majikan macam mana untuk implement gaji minimum ini. Lain-lain persaraan, lain-lain pelanggaran yang of course paling banyak sekali ialah yang 27% tu, itu berkenaan dengan apa ni, 27% ni sebab kemudahan tiada salinan kontrak pekerjaan. Itu lain-lain lah, itu tak ada kena-mengena dengan topik pada hari ini. So, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, rumusan yang dapat kita buat bahawa kalau kita tengok kepada slide pembentangan Datuk Seri Uzir tadi, bahawa kalau gaji minimum di negara kita ialah sebanyak RM1,500, kita dapati bahawa gaji minimum RM1,500 itu masih lagi jauh nak dibandingkan dengan median wage dan juga living wage. Living wage kita diambil average tadi sebanyak RM2,700. So compare to RM1,500 memang agak jauh lah. Tapi apakan daya, itulah yang terbaik untuk negara kita buat setakat ini. Dan kita berharaplah bahawa dengan pendapatan isi rumah daripada RM1,200 kepada RM1,500 ini dapat sedikit menampung keperluan dan juga kenaikan cost of living, terutamanya kumpulan B40 yang amat terkesan, yang amat terkesanlah dengan hasil daripada kenaikan cost of living di sebagaimana yang ada sekarang ni lah. Dan kalau kita tengok kepada bahan asas makanan dan juga keperluan harian, sebenarnya gaji RM1,500 tidak dapat untuk menampung keperluan kehidupan seharian, terutamanya di bandar-bandar besar. Tapi untuk kes di Sarawak, kita berharaplah gaji sebanyak RM1,500 ini dapat juga sedikit untuk menampung keperluan seharian pekerja-pekerja, terutamanya keluarga. So with that, jangan orang kata serik lah, ibu jerak untuk sentiasa menjadikan jabatan buruh sebagai jabatan yang dapat memberi khidmat nasihat kepada tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, dan janganlah menganggap kami sebagai satu jabatan yang sentiasa orang kata unfriendly lah. Okay. Kita ada 16 cawangan di seluruh Sarawak. Do not hesitate to call us and do not hesitate to visit atau to call us, to visit our website to get more information on gaji minimum. So with that, saya ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada semua kerana sudi mendengar. Terima kasih banyak-banyak. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Cik Wan. I think a good perspective from the enforcement department point of view to tell us what it is actually in terms of the implementation. I think I'm quite interested in one of the slides where Cik Wan explained about the evolution of the wages. I think from where it started, the wage structure, very diverse situation. We've come to about 10 years ago, we all agreed that we need to do something from the nation perspective for the interest of the nation as well as the employees, and then the wages, minimum wage was agreed. And another interesting point is that I think as we know, the employers have been raising great concerns about the wage. There's a lot of debates, a lot of discussions a lot of worriness being expressed and all that. But the statistics showed by Tuan, eventually, I think when the law is being implemented, we all, in the greater interest of the nation and in compliance to law, has upheld and implemented the minimum wage well. I think a big congratulations to the employers in Sarawak. I think what that is a clear essence that upon a thorough engagement and understanding, what is more important is that to ensure the implementation goes well. And I think that is one key takeaway point that we could take from the presentation. And I think for some of you, the enforcement has also been staggered to cater for small, medium industry, especially the micro category, which could be very adversely affected, so that there's a transition time for those to take on. I think so. We have heard so far from the Chief Statistician of the country. We have heard from the Labour Department who uphold and enforce the implementation of the minimum wage. So, but one of the key stakeholders for the wages issue in this country is the employers. All right, employers category group are actually basically stands in between, because the moment you don't agree, the employees will come out in the social media and in all that and said you are very, very ruthless, you don't care for the workforce. The moment some agreement made, the employees will come back and say, are you doing a job? How come that you have not said no, you should have done it? So I think the employers group are in a very kind of a difficult situation, but this is a matter that you have no choice. You like it or not, it has to be addressed, because wages are fundamental issue that's related to cost of doing business and the operation of the organization. So I think the next part of the presentation, the sharing today, is going to be from those who are involved in the implementation, the people who is going to get this to roll out from a micro perspective at the organization level, and then also from the industry perspective. So I think we have today to start out on this part of the presentation. We have with us Dato Haji Shamsuddin Bardan. I think he's a very well-known figure in the area of labor legislation related to the employer's point of view. Not only that, Dato Shamsuddin is currently the Executive Director of Malaysian Employees Federation. He also sits in the ILO as a representative of the employer, and he has served the CAPE, Confederation of Asia Pacific Employers, as a Secretary General of CAPE and ACE for the period of 2013 to 2015. A very seasoned person, well knowledgeable in the areas of labor law, and it's our great pleasure to hand over the next session to Dato Shamsuddin. Thank you.
Terima kasih Datuk Palani. Yang dihormati Datuk Arif, COO of HRDC, board members of HRDC, senior management of HRDC, and also fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants. Thank you for inviting MEF to share some of our views on this particular subject. And of course, we all been through to 2020, 2021 with all the lockdowns, and of course, I mean, we can't actually, ignore the fact that in 2020, 2021, more than 37,000 companies had no choice but to cease business, and more than 160,000 employees lost their job. And of course, now we are still trying to recover from all this kind of thing. And of course, it is with a lot of challenges, especially on the cost increase. And of course, when we talk about cost increase, we can't help but look at the increases in the minimum wages, which is not small. It is something like 25% to 36% increase. Around ASEAN, yes, there were increases in their minimum wages, but less than 5% increases in the last year and this year. But of course, ours is 25% to 35%, and this is what I think Datuk Seri Uzir had mentioned, that we are trying to increase the share of wages to the GDP eventually to something like 40%. That I would say is a tall order, because currently we are less than 35% kind of thing. And of course, apart from the wage increases, of course, wage increases can vary, the cost can vary from one company to another depending on the situation. Some companies say that their wages cost, especially the hotel sector, services sector, can be 50 to 60% of their total cost, thing like that. But of course, the other part is, of course, the cost of fund is also going to be very expensive. Because the Bank Negara had increased the OPR, overnight policy rate, by 25 basis point, making it to 2% now in May, starting in May. But of course, there were a lot of talks about increasing by further 25 basis point, making it to be 2.15, thing like that, or 2.25, which is, again, this is going to be, I would say, having a lot of chain reaction effect. Your cost of borrowing is going to increase, and of course, as employers, we have no choice but to pass it on to the market, thing like that. Of course, there will be further increases in inflation rate. Dato Sri, I think this is part of your major work later on in trying to make sure that we are okay in terms of our inflation rate, thing like that. And of course, the other part is basically, ladies and gentlemen, of course, as employers, we are now facing a lot of difficulties in terms of labor shortages. Yeah? And the labor shortages can be very, very high. Some of them say that actually they need 130,000, like the plantation sector. They lost a lot of money, more than 100 billions, because they actually couldn't harvest the ripe fruits, thing like that. Similarly, the manufacturing sector also faced a lot of labor shortages, kind of thing. And of course, we also have a lot of issues about supply chain because of the lockdowns in China, because of the current crisis in Russia and Ukraine, thing like that. And of course, we did our own survey as far as minimum wages is concerned, and 67 of the participants say that they are not ready. Yeah. And of course, 32% say that they are ready. And of course, we are also now still very concerned about new variants of COVID-19, BA4, BA5, things like that. And of course, the other diseases that are also of concern, hand, foot, and mouth diseases, and of course, monkeypox. These are the kind of environment that actually we have to operate now. And of course, these are very, very challenging to the employers. And of course, I don't want to dwell on this because they've been touched by, I think, Datuk Sri Uzir on this particular subject. Yeah? But of course, it's important to note that Bank Negara had said that this is the rate that they had mentioned as far as living wage is concerned. But what we want to know is that basically that living wage is something that is not easy to actually implement, in the sense that it is talking about household income. As employers, we don't employ household. We employ employees, individual employees, and that's where I think the concept of minimum wages can still be relevant as far as employing employees are concerned. But the concept of living wages is something that the government need to address rather than individual employers. And of course, when you talk about minimum wages, it is legislated by the NWCC Act, and also, of course, as a country, we had ratified Convention 131, and of course, there are certain restrictions, certain requirements that as a country that ratified the convention, we need to really observe. Yeah? And this is just the living wage rates that had been discussed earlier. And what is important is basically for us to say that, okay, look, this is based on the Bank Negara report, but I would say this is quite old report, 2018, where they say that 27% of households in Kuala Lumpur were earning below the living wage. I'm, of course, a bit excited about this figure because in that sense, our ability to actually meet up with the concept of living wages as far as 2018 figures are concerned is quite high, in the sense that it is more like 73% of the household are beyond or earning beyond living wages. Yeah? And of course, living wages, of course, I say it's not something that is easy to to define, not easy to comply or implement, because it is more like you're talking about individual household income rather than employees' income. And of course, this is just to share the kind of figures that we want to have in future. So our shared prospective vision 2030, we are talking getting wages share to the GDP closer to 48% rather than just 40%. Of course, in the next few years, we try to actually exhibit to achieve 40% GDP to wages kind of thing in 2025. This is within RMK 12, which I would say is going to be very, very challenging. Yeah? And of course, you know, these are the kind of criteria that the country uses to actually you know, review the minimum wages. One is the base criteria, the poverty line income. Of course, poverty line income is very challenging. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we had 983 as the initial poverty line income, but a lot of criticism by the World Bank, by the IMF, and eventually we actually had reviewed the poverty line index to more than 100%, 2,280. So that figure is really very challenging, and of course putting a lot of pressure on the minimum wages itself. Of course, the other part is median wages, changes to the consumer price index, labor productivity growth, and unemployment rate. Yeah? And of course, you know, the unemployment rate is quite encouraging now. We are at 3.9%. Of course, these are based on the efforts done by the government to introduce a lot of subsidies to encourage creation of new employment, things like that. And from a high of 5.5% or 5.3 unemployment in May 2020, we are now able to reduce it to 3.9. Yeah? And of course, what is important also for us to realize that minimum wages, I think we still have some issues in the sense that the law is not clear. Yeah? Whether when we employ someone based on task basis, say for example, like we pay someone based on trip, and whether we actually have to still pay minimum wages. Yeah? So based on this particular case, ladies and gentlemen, what the company have before the implementation of minimum wages was they have 350 as the basic pay, and of course they pay by trips and things like that. But when the government introduced minimum wages, they abolished altogether the minimum, the basic pay, but they actually just pay based on the trips. Yeah? And of course, you know, they are actually being paid, I would say, not small. Their take-home pay can be more than 6,000, 7,000 ringgit per month. And of course, you know, the employees say they're not being paid any basic wages of 900 at that time. Of course, the Labour Department say, no, the law say that you must pay basic wages of 900 ringgit. Even though you earn more than 6,000 ringgit, 7,000 ringgit per month, you still have to pay basic wages. Of course, the company was a bit you know, not happy with that. They went to the High Court, but they lost at the High Court. They went to the Court of Appeal, but of course they also lost the case. And this is, I think, something that I think we need to really reconsider the position, because, you know, as MEF, we are saying that the purpose of minimum wages is to ensure that you earn a basic minimum per month, so that you are not being paid lower than that particular rate per month. But in this case, you are earning well above the minimum, and there shouldn't be any issue about the company having to pay additional minimum wages, things like that. And of course, the new rate, like I say, is very, very high. The increases is by 25% to 36%. And a lot of statement in the media, ladies and gentlemen, to say that contractors that supply labor to the government, those people supplying labor to the schools, to the hospitals, and things like that, they are not able to meet up with the 1,005 because their contract were based on the old minimum wages rate. And of course, the government currently had no plans to actually review those rates. So the employers actually is not in a financial position to give 1,005. Of course, that is legally wrong. And I even suggested to these companies, okay, let your employee file a case at the Labour Department and let the government also be cited as the principal employer and see what the Labour Department is going to decide and what the High Court is going to decide over the subject matter. Because to me, the government is the principal employer and the government should actually own up those kind of things, because you don't expect the individual contractors to actually subsidize the payment of wages to the employees because of the new minimum wages. Yeah? And of course, we say that the minimum wages, ladies and gentlemen, based on statistics, based on data, we say that most of the beneficiaries of the minimum wages are really foreign workers. If you look at the data, ladies and gentlemen, before we implement the minimum wages, we have something like 2.2 million foreign workers in the country at that time, yeah, before the implementation of minimum wages. But the data say that about 1.8 million employees are earning less than 1,005 at the material time. So we introduced 900 ringgit as the minimum wages, and I would say that all those kind of employees, foreign workers, are actually benefiting from the review of the minimum wages itself. And of course, what is the impact? Yeah? So the foreign workers actually had been remitting all the while about 34 billion ringgit per year to their source country. Yeah? These are the kind of money that they earn from working in Malaysia. And MEF had made a calculation to actually say that every 100 ringgit increase in minimum wages, there will be additional 4 billion ringgit remitted to the source country. Yeah? So, of course, we are talking about 300 to 400 ringgit increases. Of course, it can be like 12 to 16 billion ringgit increases in the remittances to the source countries. Yeah? And of course, the other thing is that as employers, we always face with this problem, because once you review the rate of the minimum wages, then people earning somewhere near that level will say, hey, what is there for me? And of course, we as employers, we need to maintain the eternal equity. So it's not just the minimum wages review that you are talking about. We also need to review those wages even above the 1,500 ringgit. And of course, to make it more difficult for the employers, even the higher up salaried employees will also say that, okay, look, I also deserve a review of salary, because the lower down the rank also are given wages increases, things like that. So there will be that kind of ripple effect as far as the market is concerned. And of course, this is not what MEF say, not what the employers say. This is done by an economist kind of thing, yeah, to say that actually, you can expect price increases to happen about 50 to 60%, and this was targeted at June 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, you have seen earlier what is happening in the market now. The price increases are very, very stiff. The government had formed various committees, various council to address the issues of price hike in the country. Yeah? And of course, this is something that, Dato he's not here, so sorry. No, this figure is not as I would say, deep as what Dato Sri had shared just now. To me, whatever wage increase, it is a real increase. It is, I had not even seen any unreal increase in wages. So looking at wages growth and productivity growth for the figure 2011-2019, the average growth of productivity during that period was 3.12%, and also the wages cost, the wages growth during the same period is 5.0%. So if you're looking at the wage gap, it is 1.9% per year, and of course you're talking about 9 years. The gap between productivity growth and wages growth is 17.1%. I think this is a subject that I think possibly we can deliberate further. How do we address these kind of issues where actually the wages growth actually outstrip the productivity growth? And of course, this is what we expect the government need to do, because we are still trying to recover from the pandemic, from the big flood. We are trying to recover from the uncertainties, supply chain issues, things like that. So as employers, we need to actually be incentivized to reduce the cost of increases in minimum wages. We require more tax incentive. And of course, we also need to actually get incentive from the government to pay out schemes based on productivity, based on performance, things like that. And of course, more important is that the government should subsidize employers to sustain their businesses due to the increases in the minimum wages, especially the MSMEs. So I think with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for willing to listen to our views and also our discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dato' Shamsuddin. I think very spot on, as I said, on the perspective of the micro, where an impact of the announcement of the minimum wage, what kind of contractual effect that happens on the ground. Because as an employer, you are bound by it, but I think we have all got contractual obligation with our clients. We have got the production that need to be done via a certain price that was agreed, and the calculation is being made on the cost at that material time. And when this kind of a sudden impact comes in post-pandemic, so the competitiveness, the way to sustain this impact is one of the biggest challenge for the employer, because if the employer is unable to come out with the right method and strategy, that is going to create a big impact, and the eventual situation, if it gives up or the business unable to sustain, may also end up with a big number of retrenchment or loss of employment, which is a cumulative effect, not only to the employee but to the economy at large. Right? That's one. And then also how do you look at the figure? I think as Dato' Shamsuddin said, if 27%, the statistic of Bank Negara shows 27% is living below, that means 63% is living, the wages is sustainable in that context. So it all depends on the way we look at it. And also he has also raised a point that the concept of living wage has to be acronized mutually as the responsibility of not only the employer but also government to address the other part of the gap, so that the labor wages sustainability could be seen in a more holistic context rather than the employer or employment issue alone. Right. Thank you, Dato', for that. I think we move to the next panelist. One of the key points that, if you notice, that was highlighted by our first panelist, Dato' Sri Uzir, as well as Dato' Shamsuddin just now, is that the concept of how do we look at productivity. All right. I think one of the key key issue that we need to address is that how that we could evolve our wages system to be productivity driven rather than policy or driven by law. Because I think eventually the game changer is that if we could make our workforce competitive, we could make our industry to be very productive to the global standard, then I think we will not have much of an issue of minimum wage, because that would be a matter of so basic that we'll be looking into retention, we're looking into keeping the talent, and then also to sustain the productivity. And I think as the agency that champion the productivity, and I'm very passionate on the subject because I'm one of the early proponents of productivity linked wage system. We implemented the wage system way back in 2001, 2002, and we saw a very, very significant correlation between productivity and wage if it's being implemented, if we have a right strategy and right approach. So we have with us the next panelist, Puan Hajah Nur Hafizah, from the Malaysian Productivity Corporation, Sarawak region. She is currently the director for the Sarawak, and I think she has been as a long outstanding career from 1993 with MPC. So I think she's a true and true productivity related person. So I think, thank you very much for joining us. I think I passed over the next part to you. Puan.
Thank you, Dato'. The VIP, please.
Malaysia, a thriving economy with productivity relatively higher than regional peers, but not without challenges. The pandemic has brought the world's economy to its knee, and Malaysia is no exception. Mired with low productivity and shortage of skilled labour, Malaysia is now set to embark on a new journey for higher productivity. Post-pandemic, the world of work changes globally, accelerating the need for automation and digitalization across almost all sectors, causing the demand for talent development becoming one of the greatest needs for emerging economies such as Malaysia. The demand for skilled labour is key for higher productivity in the knowledge economy environment. It is becoming more pertinent than ever in ensuring that businesses not being hampered in the face of global crisis. Such was the case during the global economic lockdown due to the pandemic when workers' mobility were restricted. The need to spur Malaysia's workforce is not only in quality, but as well as in numbers. Malaysia is set to attain 3.6% productivity growth in 2022, projected against the national GDP.
All right, thank you so much, Dato Palaniappan Joseph. All right, that video will bring us to the issue of productivity versus wage growth. Yeah, as you are aware that for 2022, the government is targeting productivity growth of 3.6%. Despite we are seeing inflation pressure coming in, but according to WEF, productivity still matters despite inflation. Why? Because when workforce is more productive, produces more goods and services at a lower cost per unit, this means that there's a greater supply of these things. It puts downward pressure on prices and is therefore associated with lower inflation. So again, we should be looking at productivity as what our panelists has been driving the matter forward, right? So my presentation, we'll be looking at productivity roadmap. How do we move on exploring another resources of ours that is based on knowledge-based capital, labor productivity and wage growth, employer and employee dilemma, looking at innovation and diffusion, and also productivity improvement initiatives that MPC is currently undertaking in collaboration with various parties. Also from the policy aspect, looking at the regulatory initiatives to enhance productivity improvement on the part of the government, and conclusion of my presentation. Right. This is the roadmap that we are propagating now, based on knowledge-based capital, right? We are looking at the human resource aspect, looking at how do we address skills mismatch, all right? In terms of having a better wages and income distribution, and also to inculcate that innovation and diffusion of the said innovation. All right. From this model, the key importance to sustain productivity growth is, of course, is about fostering innovation. At the global frontier, and we facilitate diffusion of new technologies to firms at the national frontier. We would like to create a market environment where the most productive firms are allowed to thrive, thereby facilitating the more widespread penetration of available technologies. We shall see how MPC implement that initiative, and also to reduce resource misallocation, particularly skill mismatches that we are having right now. just a glance through of what we have been looking earlier from DOSM. All right. Of course, we have been experiencing wage growth which is lower than productivity growth over the years. Yeah, and the gap, as our panelists from me have mentioned, the gap is rather alarming and can be widening when a minimum wage comes into effect. But how do we address this gap? That's where MPC, we can provide some kind of solution to both employer and employees. Right. There, of course, when the minimum wage comes into effect, we are facing with both sides of the dilemma, the employer and employee. All right, as what is shared here. On the side of the employee, they are claiming that the employer are not paying enough. On the side of employer, they're claiming that employer is not doing enough. Okay, so where we, how do we mitigate this? Where does the balancing act? How do we balance this perspective? All right. So again, we would like to look at how we initiate policies at sectoral level as well as enterprise level. Thank you. So just a bit of, before that, just a bit of where we are in terms of competitiveness ranking for Malaysia's annual rich schooling and also the expenditure and innovation ecosystem in 2019 compared to some developed countries and also our regional countries here. We are playing a catching up game. Yeah? We are still lagging. All right. So how do we address this? This is the basis for we develop our talent development program or talent development initiatives under RMK12 to inculcate the productive mindset from schooling years and also carried out throughout the tertiary education and to enhance that innovation mindset. So in terms of innovation and diffusion, as according to Global Innovation Index 2021, our strengths are highly technological products in terms of imports and exports. They are well developed and deep cluster of firms and suppliers, and we have tertiary graduates in STEM. All right. But, however, we are lacking in terms of protection of invention, training of talent by industry, and labor productivity. So these are the, I would say, opportunities for improvement, yeah, for us to look into reducing this gap. Okay. So we believe that productivity growth via diffusion innovations would happen at sectoral level and enterprise level. For MPC, we have sectoral-led initiatives from our 11 productivity nexus established under the Malaysia Productivity Blueprint, which are championed by industry captains themselves from 11 identified sectoral economic sectors, from tourism, health, private healthcare, right to electronics. Yeah, we have all sectors identified, and together we identify programs and we develop programs that will address the gap of talent in the industry. And also at enterprise level, we are embarking into enterprise productive initiative. Yeah, we will identify frontier company that will be the lead model company, yeah, for along their value chain, their vendors or their subsidiaries, yeah, to in terms of productivity initiatives, yeah, or in their sector. All right. So we are looking at collaborative innovation in the sector and enterprise level. Right. So So this is one of the initiatives currently being implemented. We just launched it this year. We call it Academy in a Factory, all right? Or AIF, creating the right skills for the right job and right pay. Yeah, this is talent development program developed by the industry themselves. We are looking at grooming local talents among those SPM school leavers who have not gone anywhere, even among orang-orang asli, and also from AADK, Agensi Arti Daerah Kebangsaan. So we collaborate with various government agencies to tap this, I would say, forgotten talent pools in the country. So a group of them are selected for 18 months on a job training, all right? And they will be given skill base, and they will be recruited based on the performance. And we are targeting 300,000 of these AIF graduates by 2025, which is by end of RMK 12 plan. Okay. Video.
Saya membantu memastikan industri, syarikat-syarikat dan kilang-kilang tempat berserta macam anak-anak semua untuk bekerja dan memajukan diri. Semua peserta hari ini pangkat anak-anak kepada saya. Untuk anak-anak, semua ibu bapa mahu lihat anak-anak berjaya, menjadi manusia yang lebih baik, boleh membina kehidupan. Tapi kadang-kadang akan ada kesusahan yang kita akan alami. Jangan sesekali berputus asa. Cabaran akan menjadikan kita lebih kuat dengan hidup. Saya mahu semua anak-anak hari ini berjaya. Kita tak mahu anak-anak jadi operator kilang sahaja. Kita nak semua maju jadi technician, supervisor atau jurutera dalam 3 atau 5 tahun dari sekarang. Untuk senang di kemudian hari, kita perlu berusaha sekarang, hadapi cabaran, jiwa kental dan ingat harapan ibu bapa kita. Selamat datang ke Academy in Factory and good luck.
That's the real video, the first batch of recruits, that has been trained in one of the semicon factories in Penang, and that is Dato Wang Siu Hai himself, one of the Nexus champion for electrical and electronics productivity Nexus. Okay, next, another initiative that we are addressing, as I mentioned earlier, is the Enterprise Productive, which is intervention through Productivity Enterprise Program, where we will identify frontier companies can be like a big brother to their fellow vendors and the likes. So we are implementing the waterfall effect, which is a transfer of technology and knowledge in terms of digital technology, in terms of transfer of knowledge on best management practices, and also supporting each other similar to concept of an industry cluster. So this is a sharing of knowledge. What I think we have been doing it, but we want to have a multiple impact through this initiative. We would like to, at the end of the day, identify innovative projects, also recognize these companies as productivity champions in terms of leaders, practitioners, and talents. Also, as other programs that we have, we also build the capacity in terms of Internet of Things for small and micro industry, especially Mari Skill IoT, right? Also, as Dato mentioned, we are still championing productivity language system among industries in Malaysia, and also we are looking at productivity 10-10, and we have also industry forward assessment, where we conduct assessment for small and medium companies, whether they are ready to move into Industry 4.0. Okay, all these initiatives the MPC is undertaking, it can be summarized under our ANTAC acronym. We advocate, we nudge, we track, and we advise, and we coach all these companies. But we don't work on our own. We collaborate with both parties, private and public. All right. Even there are exemplary companies that emerge from these initiatives. For Sarawak, we have identified a few small companies that have shown the potential to be the frontier company. One of them is Stockland Borneo. Just a small company, but they are really showing potential of sharing their IoT knowledge among their partners and their vendors. Right. On the side of government, MPC is mandated to conduct a regulatory review. All right. So regulation that is holding up businesses to conduct business productively, we will review. We work with the ministries who are the regulatory coordinators. All right. And one of the latest initiatives is My Muda. All right. My Muda is a direct platform for firms to channel their issues and challenges in complying with business regulations. Right. Industries bring issue to government via this My Muda. One of the collaborators, we have FMM. We collaborate with FMM HQ, and FMM HQ with all their branches throughout the country. We have established a unit of My Muda to expedite this regulatory initiative. Right? So AIF comes up from that My Muda issue. Right. To conclude, all right. Clearly, economic growth must be driven by productivity growth, right? There's no way to about it, right? And how do we go to attain that productivity growth? Of course, you need to look at the employee skills upgrading, in terms of automation and digitization, and innovation of enterprise processes, products, and business models. Right, as well as evidence-based government policies. No more government main agak-agak to craft the policy, but it must be based on evidence and facts and figures. Right. Again, as closing, I would say that productivity is a game changer, and MPC will do more to facilitate both private and public sectors to be more productive. Thank you.
Thank you, Puan Hajah, Hafizah. I think she aptly put in that there is an issue of lack of productivity that need to be addressed, the training of talent, and also the innovation. And I think she gave us some good case study that what MPC has embarked on as Academy in the Factory is one such an initiative where together with the stakeholders, MPC have embarked and worked on actual ground because raising up skill will eventually contribute to raising the productivity. And eventually, as we move towards more automated business environment, what is critical is that our base workforce need to be equally and adequately skilled with the latest required competency. And I think she have given us that perspective, because raising up productivity is not only from the perspective of wages, but is also raising the competency. How at enterprise level or policy level that we can look into making the business policies more easily implementable. At the same time, the employer's perspective is also being looked in, and the employees as well. Right, thank you, Puan, for that. I think we move on to the last presenter today. I think he is representing Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers, Dato Suppiah. I think as has been explained by MPC earlier, And also during the presentation of our first panel, manufacturing sector I've seen to be a strong proponent of productivity-driven wages, and also the wage level has actually moved up according to the requirement of the market. But nevertheless, it is a very critical area where one of the key elements or the impact of the minimum wage is where the biggest sector of the operation there. Dato Nathan is a long-serving council member of Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers. He is also the current vice president. He serves in the various capacity in various board representing FMM, and he's also currently the Secretary General of the Malaysian Shipping Association. All right, Federation. So I think without any further ado, I'd like to invite Dato Nathan to share his thoughts on the subject today. Dato, over to you.
Thank you, Dato Moderator, Dato Palani. Yang bahagia, Dato Shahul, CEO HRDC. Yang bahagia, Dato Arif, COO HRDC. And all the HRDC board members, my colleagues in the panel, and ladies and gentlemen. Originally, my speech was supposed to be saying good morning, but now already good afternoon. That shows how long you all have been sitting here. Just another possibly 15 minutes of my time, maybe even shorter, because earlier speakers have almost covered national statistics and impact of minimum wage 1,500, and actually Dato Shamsuddin have covered most of what I should be saying, right? So you make it easier. He has covered almost the background, frustration, implication of the implementation of MW 1500, right? And also our Puan from MPC has spoken a lot about productivity and future workforce and skill up and so on, right? So maybe I should only be covering something more psychological, right? But first thing is that the topic itself is very impressive, right? The topic is about Malaysia at the crossroads, living wage versus minimum wage. Honestly and frankly speaking, I don't know how many of you all have actually heard about living wage, right? Basically in Malaysia, most employers have not to say recovered from the impact of the implementation of the minimum wage. Minimum wage itself is enough to cause a major blow to many industries, like what Dato Shamsuddin mentioned. The cost up is over 25%, and also the rollover, right? So the minimum wage, at this moment, most of us are going through technical correction, right? Because it was suddenly announced without consultation when it will be implemented and so on, right? So for year 2022, so how do we adjust our budget, right? So in this sense, another new topic is coming up, living wage, which is actually not much heard of in this part of the world, although in the advanced countries they are talking about it, right? But the economists' impression is different, right? They think that the living wage is not something which can relieve the miseries of salary earners. It may not be suitable for small companies. It may not create job opportunities, right? And maybe many are not ready yet, right? But I'm not saying that living wage is not suitable for Malaysian economy, right? But it takes some time to accept that, right? Because at 1,500 itself, the minimum wage at 1,500 itself have been very grudgingly accepted by industry, right? And to look at living wage, it might be another cost up of another 50% or so, right? So whether our industries will be able to take up or not, right? So before I go further into the material that's prepared for me to speak, right? I think some things need good consultation, right? with the stakeholders, especially government, the union, and also the industries need a good consultation before anything is implemented. Any shocks will be worrying, because I'm not sure whether you are aware that most of the SME companies are actually dependent on multinational companies, right? Dependent in the sense that most of them are vendor companies, right? When you're a vendor company, your profit margin is actually already determined by the principal, right? That means you only get about 30%, yeah, 30%. In most cases, you get about 30% for your own costs, right? Our own costs would mean that to cover the minimum wage, to cover the staff cost, to cover the rental. In some cases, you got to top up for the defect as well, right? So the revenue that the SME gets are already decided by the principal company. So any further adjustment to the wages will be to the expense of the business owner, right? In most cases, the business owner will want to transfer the cost to somebody, right? Who will he transfer to? He will transfer to either the B2B person or B2C, right? So when that is done, then imagine the other cost implication that comes along, right? But let's say if he thinks that, okay, I don't want to increase the price, it's not fair, or maybe it's might be breaching contract, okay? For him to absorb, then what will happen to him? How long he can absorb the cost? Then he might go out of business. So there are many things that we have to worry about before adopting any wage increases and so on, right? So that is because I find that the living wage is a kind of provocative topic for us and very challenging topic for us. But it's interesting, at least something you are allowing us to think that what is in store next. Thank you very much, HRDC, for this provocative topic. Okay, now on the issue of living wage and minimum wage, basically, whether it's a living wage, a minimum wage, or staff costs, or whatever it is, very much related to the standard of living. Right? Standard of living is something which is materialistic stuff which we ourselves create and we chase after that, right? And the quality of life, sometimes it is related to standard of living, sometimes it's a real stressful matter, right? I might be able to deliberate later. The minimum wage, like what Tuan mentioned, it has a history way back 2013, right? 2013, now 2023, 10 years down the road, you can see almost close to 100% up, right? From 900 to 1,500 is very close, right? And living wage, okay, we'll discuss that later. I'll come back to that. Okay. Now coming back to standard of living, basically the standard of living is something that you want, something which is very materialistic. This is something very personal satisfaction, right? Especially those who are coming into job market, right? We are not talking about especially those who are earning the minimum wage category. Others who are coming into the job market, the certificate holders or diploma holders or degree holders, right? First thing, what you look for is whether you are going to be paid according to your qualification and experience, right? So it's from there you set your lifestyle, yeah? Your lifestyle, you want some nice houses, you might upgrade yourself from a flat to a landed property or some other better condominium, right? So when you do that, right, you're increasing your own liability, right? Say, suppose you're earning 5,000, if you upgrade yourself to better condominium, right, improving your standard of living, right, So along the way, you're increasing your stress as well. So like that, as you consider all that, all that item that is shown there, you know, whether it is a clothing item or whether you buy something or whether you want, safety can be anything, right? Even if you want to live in a gated and guarded community also, you have to pay for it, right? And you might want to choose good school for your kids, right? And instead of going to government hospital, you might only want to go to medical centers. Right? Poverty rate, of course, you want to live in a better than the poverty threshold limit. Right? And the gross domestic product, this actually relates to country's GDP, right? What is the country's GDP per capita? For example, I think just now Dato Sri mentioned that Malaysia's GDP per capita is about 10,400 USD, I think, right? So these are some of the things that you chase after, right? So when you chase after, of course, the standard of living, you have a standard, yeah? Or you have a standard. Our friends used to say that, oh, you have a standard, right? You have chosen a certain lifestyle, okay? So this lifestyle must be funded, yeah? Funded by salaries, okay? So this is where your quality of life comes in, okay? The higher you earn, higher the choice of your standard of living, the lower will be your quality of life will be going down, right? Because you have to come out with, you have to work harder. You have to work harder to maintain a certain lifestyle, right? And the quality of life is always a perception that, you know, you must have this, you must have that, and so on, and working towards that, right? But we find that most of the time, when you chase after good standard of living, right, it's always at the expense of your quality of life, time, family time, or your recreational time, right? You have to work extra hours or second job, etc. Okay. Okay. The Okay, let's look at the what issues the minimum wage has caused, right? Basically, the positive issues obviously would be individuals' financial levels would have got better, right? As a result, the standard of living would have got better, right? He'll be able to spend more and fuel the economy of the country as well, right? And he will be motivated because he has received extra income. Of course, he will be motivated, and as a result, there's job retention for employees also is good, right? And of course, the other things will follow, right? Maybe he will go and skill up himself, right? Take up more upskill costs and so on because he got extra money, or probably ask the employer to train him more through HRDC programs. Okay, that'd be good. Right. And the negative effect, I don't want to elaborate more because Dato Shamsuddin have already hammered a lot, right? But as he said, right, the minimum wage did not only bring benefit to the, say, those who are earning 1,500 only, right? Because the adjustment got to be made across the board until the GM level, right? And all the way adjustment cumulatively, it would have cost the company's wage bill by at least 40 to 45% for 2022 would have cost this much, right? So this is something which is unplanned because most companies will have budgetary, pre-decided budgetary plan, right? And who is going to take these costs? It's employers like us, the consumers like most of us will have to take this cost, right? We did warn, MEF also warned, FMM also warned the government that if you embark on this, you will have to eat 2 roti canai at the cost of, same cost maybe, but you have to take 2 roti canai because roti canai will cost more these days, right? Why 2? If you're going to pay the same price, roti canai will be like Italy. I don't know how many of you have seen Italy in the Indian pancake which they'll use for breakfast, which is only a palm size, right? So imagine if your roti canai come palm size. So these are the impact, right? So because of the sudden increase to the cost, many cost pass down has taken place, right? So as a result, we are having, coupled with the food shortage, we are also having to pay higher prices, okay? Oh, okay. Okay, I will skip this because Dato Shamsuddin has already explained much on the minimum wages, right? But basically, our point of view is that wages is very much connected with productivity. Okay, if let's say productivity grows, I'm sure the employer will share the benefit or the fruits of the hard work or the productive contribution of the employee with the employer, right? But the difficulty here is that everything must be planned, right? Especially the minimum wage is part of the cost of goods sold, okay? So it has to be planned. So if only the minimum wage go up, then it's also a problem, right? Because the other costs remain constant. Right? So it's very important that salary becomes predictable. Okay? So in this respect, it's better like what I think Dato Palani mentioned about the productivity linked wage system. That is actually outside the pre-budget, right? So whenever there is extra into the profit percentage, okay, that is outside, even outside the plan as well, okay. Yeah, that can be easily shared, okay. So our point is predetermined salary is important. Pre-consulted salary implementation is important, and any salary paid must be productivity linked, right? So my time is up. Thank you very much for patiently listening to me. Thanks to HRDC for tapping our brains. It's time up. You must be hungry. I pass the mic back to Dato Palani. Thank you, Dato Palani.
Thank you, Dato Nathan. Right. Thank you also for patiently waiting for your turn, the last 1.5 hour. All right. I think as Dato Nathan put forward his point of view is that probably we got to make sure that when we look at the minimum wage or the living wage, what we need to look at is also the relevancy of adopting such a concept in this region and also the readiness of the industry at large in terms of that. And I think we got to also look at the issue of wage from sustainable point of view, whether the organization can evolve and sustain such kind of cost impact. Other than that, I think another key takeaway is that the planning or the policy changes of wages has to be done through some extensive consultation and engagement with the stakeholders to ensure better readiness of the various stakeholders for the movement of wage. Right? I think thank you to all the panelists. I think we have got a good input probably that we have heard from all. In the interest of time, I think we can spend another about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to take on some of the questions. So I think you have actually shared your questions in via the Slido. I think we will open up the question one by one, and I'll open it to the panel. Anyone feel that you're comfortable to take up the question, you can respond based on that. The first question is that, can employer put the current monthly allowance in basic wages to meet the new requirement of basic 1.5K. Means there will be no more allowance for the staff. So I think my colleague Tuan immediately has got himself ready for the answer as the regulator. Okay, we'll get him to answer first.
Okay. As I mentioned earlier in my slide, that minimum wages means basic wages. So, kalau you nak campur dengan another allowances into that basic, of course lah, kita akan sentiasa memberi nasihat bahawa is this only basic wages in the apa yang diambil kira dalam RM1,500. As simple as that. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, Dato Shamsuddin.
Perhaps I may just want to respond to this. If you look at the 2012 minimum wages order, there is a provision where they say that before you implement minimum wages, employers are allowed to restructure their wages by including some of the fixed allowances into part of basic. That was way back in the first minimum wages order. But if you look at the current minimum wages order, there is no provision for whether to allow or whether to actually bar the inclusion of allowances into minimum wages. So I would say when the law is, there is a lacuna there, it is neither allowing or not barring. So of course as employers, you're allowed to actually negotiate with the employees to say that, yes, from this particular date, I'm going to include all your allowances into basic wages. And if the employee agree to it, no issue, no problem. So you and the employee agree that as from certain date, your wages shall be just clean wages, inclusive of all the allowances. But of course, on the practical aspect, this particular agreement has to be more like taking effect before 1st May, so that come 1st May 2022, your basic wages is so much. Of course, if it is still lower than 1,005, you have to top up to make it 1,005. So after including all the allowances into basic, if your wages is more than 1,005, with agreement on your employees as 1st May, there shouldn't be any problem from the legal point of view. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tuan and Dato Shamsuddin. Next question is this: is this minimum wage will stay for 2 or 5 years more, just like the previous minimum wages?
Just let me address this. Basically, if you look at the NWCC Act, they say that the review will be done on a 2-yearly basis. Of course, the word used is review. Review does not mean always go up. It is a neutral word. Yeah. So review also can means go down or stay as it is. Yeah. So I would say that let us have an open mind, looking at the economic situation. Then, if of course after 2 years our economy is doing very good, then we can actually review minimum wages to higher level. If the economy is not that good, possibly we can stay put. And if the economy is getting worse, then of course we need to review downward the minimum wages. So thank you.
All right. Any other panel? Respond? Okay. All right. Thank you, Dato Shamsuddin. So as you mentioned that salary can be reviewed down, I think many of the HR practitioners here giving a long smile. Is that viable in Malaysia? Okay. All right. Okay. Tuan, you want to say something? Okay. I think the next question is ready before the question we take on. The question is that why must the minimum wage rate differ in Peninsular Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak? The cost of living in Sarawak could be higher than in some states.
Okay, starting from 1st May 2020, there is no different. There is no different wages rate in between Peninsular Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak. All flat rate is 1,500. No more different from previous minimum wage. That's all.
Perhaps let me add to what Cik Wan had said. You know, if you look at minimum wages, it is not just the cost of living that decide the rate of minimum wages. There are other factors taken into consideration. I had mentioned that it is the PLI, Poverty Line Index, your productivity growth, your mean wages. Yeah? Mean wages is the company's ability to pay. Yeah? And of course, for the case of Sarawak, we can see that the productivity growth is not that high as compared to the other states in the country. Yeah, so in that sense, of course, there was a situation where wages, national minimum wages in Sabah and Sarawak were slightly lower than that of the Semenanjung. So there is a reason why actually there is some difference in wages then, and of course that is allowable under the Minimum Wages Council Act, because you know the Act also say that when you determine wages, you need to look at the kind of job you do, the region where you actually operate, things like that. So I would say that it's quite normal for country like Malaysia to have that kind of thing, to have different wages for different region. And of course, if you look at Indonesia, for example, they have even various regions having different wages. The same thing in Thailand, the same thing in I would say Philippines and Vietnam. So it is not something abnormal to have different rates for different regions. So thank you.
Right, thank you, Dato Shamsuddin. And I think we have come to the last two questions. Some companies have higher productivity and low wages pay. Can you explain that situation? Anyone in the panel? Dato Nathan, yeah.
Dato Palani, good question, but I don't think there's such a thing, right? Employers are always willing to share with the employees whenever there is profit, okay? But the salaries are part of the cost of goods manufactured, right? So it's a kind of predetermined, is built in. And profit is also determined after taking into consideration of all the raw materials, or the sales cost, salary costs, all that are built in, right? So there's no such thing as, the wages are low. It's all measured, all a measurable amount.
Thank you. And Dato, probably I think this the last question triggered from your point just now, how that MNC could assist the smaller SME to achieve the upper peranan kerajaan and syarikat besar. Maybe how the MNC could support the SME in achieving the minimum wages? Or Dato Shamsuddin?
Basically, of course, I think we should realize that for the smaller companies, they are not just operating in isolation. They are part of the bigger supply chain. So in that sense, say for example, if a company is contracting with a bigger company and say that, okay, look, they decide that the rate of compensation to be given to the company is, say, 10 ringgit for every worker that they put in per hour, for example. And that was based on the 2018 or 2020 minimum wages, 1,001, 1,002. And of course, now we are in this particular period where minimum wages is much higher. So in that sense, I would say that even if the contract is still continuous and the old rates still apply, there is, I would say, a duty, a social duty, and also a duty to assist these kind of companies to actually be, of course, given a review of the rates so that actually they are able to assist the smaller companies to comply with the minimum wages. And this is something like what I had also addressed just now about the contract suppliers to the government, where the government also should fairly review the rates so that they are in a position to actually assist the contractors to meet up with the higher expectation on the minimum wages, things like that. So thank you.
Thank you, Dato Shamsuddin. I think I have two last questions just to address to the one of the panelists, Dato Sri Uzir. Can we, for example, just now Dato you said that strength in wage growth in Malaysia signified that employees compensate workers more appropriately for the output produced. What would be the relationship that the way you look at wage and productivity growth?
Thank you. Yes, if we look at relationship between the wages and also the productivity and the earning of the company, very important that we have to look at if we as the business entity, the real thing that the company look is what the bottom line. What is how to optimize their entrepreneurship, their combination of labor and also capital. So of course, if their workers can provide, they can produce something that produce more with less workers, less intermediate input. Of course, the productivity will be increased. But I would like to narrative the current circumstances of this country is a lot of when based on the statistic. For example, the capacity utilization. If we conduct a survey every month to look at the capacity utilization of the factory, hardly to reach 70%, about 63. If we look at the occupancy rate of the hotel, some around 60%, or during the weekend maybe 90%, but on average about 50 to 60%. And we look at the load factor of the airline, we look at the ARPU, TEU. So a lot of, the economy of skill is very important. How the better pay, the salaries can be, how the share of the prosperity between the company with the employee is very important. And I would like to conclude that moving forward, everyone have their role. We have businesses, we have employees, and the role of the government to facilitate. And our economy is not yet reached like US economy. They are mature economy. We are growing economy. The role of the government is still need put a lot of intervention. For example, how to facilitate for us to go rigorous to the digital economy. Recently, the government already rolled out the 5G. How to, you know that with the interconnected, we can increase the economy of scale. We can open up, more potential for the consumer. And Malaysia with 32.2 million population, and with about 1.2 million SME in this country, I always, when I learn economy, issue of the crowding out. So issue of the crowding out is we cannot avoid. SME, they like to look at whatever people are doing. They try also venture on that particular. This is the nature of the economy that not really move as the mature economy. And a lot of industry or company also sometimes they just go so many activities. So in this as a developed country, they really have their what they call specialization. So specialization perhaps can bring a lot of the increase the productivity. In my summary, I believe the prospect how win-win situation between the employees, employers, and the government. They have way of how we can really look collectively, and no one solution that fit. And also the circumstances keep changes, they're very dynamic. So that's why National Psycho Office like DOSM, they have a role to play, because we want to discuss, to sit down based on the factual and numbers where we are both, everyone agree with the fact. The issue, if the employer bring their own numbers, employees bring their own number, so how you want to resolve the problem? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dato Sri. I think very aptly said again the role. I think the way that we perceive the issue and also how that the industry or economy could move to the next level. One last question before we wrap up. Puan, I think just now that you shared on the AFI initiative, can this be rolled out outside the manufacturing? Because there could be some participants who feel that is this very confined to manufacturing, or could we be brought out of that? If you could respond, please.
Thank you, Dato. Yes, this AIF is still in a preliminary stage. Of course, we all welcome any sectors, services in particular, because we will work, collaborate, and we will to fine-tune to the needs of the service sector. For information, as of now, we have 26 collaborative partners participating in this AIF. Okay, majority from semiconductors, if I may mention some of them, from Vitrox, Nanotechnology, Jabil, Celestica, NationGate, ST Microelectronics. So from automotive, there will be HiCom, there will be HiCom University, HiCom Automotive, and from life sciences and medical technology, we have Alcon, Braun, KRS Maritime Group, as well as we have chemical and chemical products and phenol TCS. So we are not limited, we are open for collaboration and engagement for the, in fact, we are rolling out to other states. In Sarawak, we are engaging with various stakeholders to bring AIF into Sarawak. Thank you.
Thank you, Puan. Thank you very much. I think we'll wrap up the session. Thank you very much to all our panelists for your time. I think there's various issues being shared here covering a wide range and also some of the application methodologies that we could embark on. And to the audience, thank you for your inputs via the Slido. We summarize one of the key things that actually, based on the numbers of response, we can't take all the questions, but nevertheless, the panelists will be around over the lunch, so you could always get in touch with them if you have anything that's not being addressed. With that note, thank you very much. Over to you, Dato.
Thank you, Dato. Ladies and gentlemen, the best speakers brought to you by HRD Corp. Please give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much to all the moderator, Dato Palaniappan Joseph, and to all the panelists involved this morning for such informative, insightful discussion. Very, very good, amazingly. And we hope all of you participants who are here today have been able to gain a better understanding on the topic presented earlier. So would you like to have a photo opportunity together on stage for this, to capture this memorable experience on this HRD Corp National Forum, please? There once again, ladies and gentlemen, Dato Palaniappan Joseph, Dato Sri Dr. Muhammad Uzir Mahidin, Tuan Zaifolludean Zakaria, Dato Haji Shamsuddin Bardan, Puan Hajah Nur Hafizah Muhammad Arop, and Dato Nathan K. Suppiah. Again, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, it's the end of the first session.